Against the sunset sky, a joyful relief can be heard. The exams are over. The city freezes in silence, and the air is filled with a sense of freedom. The teacher descending the stairs catches the kind words of the students, asking her to rest. Tiredness is visible in her gait, but also inner satisfaction. The teacher sees an update to her favorite novel on her phone. Thoughts about characters and plot twists flare up with curiosity and anticipation. She knows that the weekend will be spent at home, immersed in reading. This is the best way for her to recharge after stressful days. Hiding in her room with her laptop, she notices with mild annoyance that the writer has once again dragged out the sequel. Her determination grows. This is no reason to give up. Deciding to be optimistic, she is inspired, promising herself to remain a loyal fan of history. That night, she will have a literary adventure. She opens a popular novel with a bright and mysterious title. Her mind comes alive with thoughts of magic and heroes, promising an unusual plot. The story follows a girl who is surrounded by three extraordinary admirers, each of whom brings their own magic into her life. Among them are a young butler, a mysterious magician, and the prince of the kingdom. Each seems like an unattainable ideal. She wonders if she envies these characters. Knowing that it is just a fantasy, she dives into the story, filling the night with dreams and magic. In a strange world, the heroine realizes that she has become a secondary character, but she is attracted by the author's unique style and charismatic heroes. She is overcome with joy at the sight of the three main characters. The long wait is justified by their vivid images and magical atmosphere. Exploding with emotion, she eagerly demands the continuation of the story, feeling like a suffering fish, hypnotized by the magic of the plot. The silent night becomes fateful. The prince slowly pronounces her name, creating a mystical and tense atmosphere around her. His gaze penetrates her soul, causing her confusion and trepidation. Everything seems unreal, but she feels the power of the moment. The majestic prince holds her hand with unshakable confidence, but someone intervenes, causing an internal conflict. The mysterious stranger reveals his name, adding more mystery and hints of a complicated relationship to the story. The prince notices a violation of the rules of the game. His calm turns to anger, and the tension between the heroes reaches its peak. Two heroes clash in an argument. One reminds him that he doesn't have to obey the rules. The other hides a smirk behind a mask of nobility. The fair-haired hero, with the fiery gaze, decides to do things his own way. His confidence creates an aura of dangerous attractiveness around him. The mysterious Arvon Havlin suddenly appears on a dark street, attracting the attention of three people. Their reaction is a mixture of surprise and tension. Arvin looks soft and a little shy. His smile seems sincere, but the girl understands. Only in front of her is he real. In another reality, a woman stares at her laptop screen, frustrated by the lack of new chapters in her favorite novel. Her head is spinning with fatigue, and her vision is starting to blur. She wonders if she's been working too hard lately. When she wakes up, she finds herself in a strange room. She thinks it's a dream, but the setting seems too real to her. She realizes that she has found herself in the world of her novel, The Flower of the Beast. She is confused and trying to understand what is happening. Approaching the mirror, she sees a completely new reflection. She is shocked that she has become a different woman. She notices that her new body is young and refined. Her previous appearance with eternal circles under her eyes seems distant. She experiments with her reflection in the mirror, turns, looks right, left, and even squats trying to understand her new body. The plot begins. The heroine who finds herself in the body of another begins her story in the world of a novel full of unexpected events. A girl with a strong emotionality suddenly notices herself in the mirror and is surprised to realize that she sees a stranger. Her face becomes the embodiment of shock and confusion. She gradually pulls herself together, reflecting on her situation. A glance at her own reflection suddenly brings a slight smile, as if she finds comfort in what is happening. Despite attempts to calm down, emotions take over. The girl, unable to cope with her feelings, burst into tears, falling to her knees. It seems to be a moment of complete despair. Her scream brings the maid running, alarmed and concerned. The girl, through tears, tries to explain what is happening to her, but her emotions do not allow her to do so clearly. Following the maid, a couple appears, who appear to be her parents. They are alarmed, asking in confusion what happened to their daughter. but there is no answer yet. The girl, still confused, looks at the unfamiliar couple and wonders who they are. The maid explains that they are her parents, adding more confusion to her mind. When the emotions subside a little, the girl sits by candlelight and reflects. She understands that tears will not solve her problem and tries to concentrate. She takes a pen and writes down everything she can remember about her life and the people around her. This moment is an attempt to understand what happened to her. An hour later, she is lost in her thoughts and feels almost powerless. Her brain literally refuses to work, which makes her despair. Recalling the novel she read, she is lost in trying to reconstruct the details. She calls herself to calm down, realizing that the answers must be sought within herself. Lottie, a girl with blonde hair and brown eyes, wakes up thinking about the past. Her thoughts are confused, and she remembers only her connection to an aristocratic family. She realizes her fate. Her existence is only necessary for the suffering of the main character of the story. This makes her laugh and feel bitter. Lottie sees the main character, who comes to the kingdom to study at the age of 18. She understands that she must act thoughtfully. She encounters a mysterious man who notices her uniqueness, which makes her suspicious and curious. Lottie is puzzled as to why she knows so many details. She decides to put all her knowledge together and understand herself. She is getting used to life in this world. Lottie adapts to new habits, food, and life, trying to gain confidence. She begins to settle into the house and establish relationships with the people around her. Gradually, her fears go away. Lottie is surprised to notice that after a month, she is no longer afraid of her new reflection in the mirror. She feels progress. She completes full adaptation in 6 months. Now she is confident and ready for a new life. Lottie, transformed, sets off in a carriage, symbolizing the beginning of a new stage. Her inner peace is reflected in her smile. Lottie embraces her new life with pride, finding joy and gratitude for all she has despite the trials. 2 years have passed. Lottie looks mature and confident. Her name is called, and she turns around, slightly surprised, maintaining her calm and dignity. The screen shows 3 contenders for Lottie's heart: Loda, Esben, and Arvon. Her charming smile adds intrigue to the question of who she will choose. Lottie is worried, afraid that she might be deceived, but her sincere emotions make her image even more touching. In a dark space, Lottie reflects on the past, but instead of fear, she decides that she will no longer run away from reality, gaining inner strength. Lottie decides to accept the role that has been given to her. Despite the difficulties, she promises herself to cope with the situation by being determined. In the competitive popularity race, Lottie is inferior to Evelyn, but her determination and self-confidence give her the strength not to be a gray mouse. Lottie shows off her mischievous nature by throwing juice on Evelyn's face under the guise of a beauty treatment, adding humor to the plot. Tension builds between Lottie and Evelyn. Evelyn tries to hold Lottie back, but she breaks away, choosing to quietly slip away from the conflict. Lottie concludes her reflections, enjoying the moment. Her choice to live in reality and embrace life gives her story inspiration. Lottie, a girl with bright golden locks, finds herself the center of attention when she meets 3 handsome young men who are immersed in a mysterious atmosphere. She realizes that before the main character appears, she needs to find a chance to talk to these mysterious characters who attract her attention. Lottie, determined, looks around for heroes, but instead of answers, she is faced with a growing sense of anxiety and mystery. She continues to search tensely, examining every corner, to find the heroes, as if she senses that the answers are close, but still out of reach. Trying to look into unexpected places, Lottie opens a trash can, where she suddenly realizes that the heroes of her dreams remain somewhere far away. In a fit of emotion, she screams, trying to understand where these mysterious figures have disappeared to, and comes to the conclusion that there is an insurmountable wall between her and them. But suddenly, she calms down, thinking that there is still a chance if she thinks about it carefully, and anticipation awakens again in her heart. Lottie turns around excitedly, thinking she has finally found one of the heroes, and her face lights up with joy at the unexpected meeting. However, instead of a prince, she picks up a rabbit and is surprised, as if the world has decided to play a joke on her once again. Turning around, she sees another rabbit and notes with slight annoyance that these creatures continue to appear in her path. Lottie is walking in the garden, surrounded by many rabbits. She counts them, wondering how there are so many of them enjoying their playful companies. Looking back on that day, Lottie remarked on how beautiful the sunset was, painting the sky in vibrant hues. She found the moment magical and calming. She finds herself in a training ground where strong men are fighting. The sound of swords and shouts from the fighters create a tense atmosphere. Lottie scared peers out from behind her cover, watching what is happening. Her thoughts are filled with fear because there is only brute force around and no one to protect her. She notices the brutal warriors with powerful muscles. Their images frighten her. Lottie wonders why there are so many intimidating men here and feels out of place. Standing under the blazing sun, Lottie feels herself getting hot. At the same time, her attention is drawn to the impressive warrior with his perfectly defined abs. Struck by what she saw, she internally admires his physical form. Her thoughts are filled with admiration despite the general threatening atmosphere. That day, Lottie noticed such power and strength for the first time. She realizes that she is very tired, but she feels inside that these impressions will stay with her for a long time. She returns to the village, where everyday life goes on as usual. People around her are busy with their own affairs, and the noise of the city streets brings her back to reality. Lottie reflects on her life, believing that such events usually only happen in stories. She hopes that exciting adventures and encounters with heroes await her in the future. Lottie walked down the street, wondering how best to deceive dangerous people if she met them. She decided to play the victim to avoid trouble. Her attempts to escape from trouble were interrupted by a bandit who roughly pushed her out of the way. He was clearly in a bad mood, threatening her with a knife. Lottie was scared, but tried to justify herself. However, the man continued to threaten, causing her to panic. The situation escalated when a menacing man challenged Lottie to a duel. She was scared to tears, but did not know how to get out of it. In fear and despair, she unconsciously accepted the challenge. Although she continued to beg for mercy, she realized that she could be beaten. As she was mentally saying goodbye to life, a mysterious man suddenly appeared and stopped the situation. Lottie could not believe in salvation. The stranger asked if everything was okay with her, but she just looked at him in confusion, not understanding who was in front of her. The man held the enemy, trying to protect Lottie. She asked in horror who he was and why he was helping her. The defender explained that the place was dangerous and asked Lottie to return home. His confidence gave her peace of mind. Lottie later realized that her father had sent secret guards after her. She felt grateful for his concern, even though she heard a stern lecture from him. Lottie remembers how her father forbade her to leave the house, and she vowed never to break that rule again, feeling empty inside. She realizes that her chances of meeting the main characters are so small that it is comparable to the impossible marriage between a peasant and a noblewoman. 10 years later, Lottie reflects on the time that has passed since she began a new life trying to find meaning and follow her destiny. The girl is surprised that after all these years, she has never met the main characters, wondering what they look like and where to look for them. Suddenly, a dove pounces on her with a loud noise, which becomes an unexpected and slightly frightening moment in her calm routine. Realizing it is just a homing pigeon, Lottie becomes irritated, noting that it could be prettier, and is relieved of her confusion. Upon receiving the letter, she curiously unfolds it, reading an important message that awakens in her some hope for change. Lottie holds her book about the king's knights in her hands and is proud to have become a famous writer in 10 years. Despite the success, the girl feels doubt spending another day in thought, losing confidence in her own strengths and choices. Feeling the weight of time, Lottie reflects on her achievements and unfulfilled dreams, trying to find an internal point of support to move forward. Lottie listens intently as two girls discuss Hansen and Lodman. They debate who is the boss based on height, but the conclusion seems debatable. The lively dialogue gives way to the idea of judging by character. Laughing, the friends decide that the best option is Lodman on top and Hansen on the bottom. Lottie is quietly dissatisfied. Lottie remembers herself in the past. She was a dreamy girl who loved couples and noticed aesthetic details like a mole under her eye. A sudden question arises in her mind. Is there something like gays in this world? This discovery awakens in her the confidence to start writing original stories. She dives into the process with enthusiasm. Her pen moves quickly, and her inspiration never runs dry. Lottie is amazed at how easily the text now comes. The friends are enjoying the moment, ordering books in advance. The mood is light, but Lottie's attention is clearly focused on future success. At a meeting with a bookseller, Lottie is outraged by the delay in publishing her story. She is informed that her book is still in print, adding to the tension. The store's previous promises to return the book irritate her. The friends try to defuse the situation by discussing rumors about the book's imminent sequel. At sunset, Lottie holds her book proudly, the wind blowing the pages, and she feels inspired to do more. Her book quickly becomes a hit. Lottie is a huge success and is already preparing for the next wave of popularity, realizing that her passion has paid off. Lottie, a 15-year-old girl, is proud of her book, which has become popular but is only available in dark alleys. Its popularity is intriguing. Lost in her thoughts, Lottie notices the interest of Shella, her friend who watches her joy with a smile. Shella is clearly intrigued. Taken by surprise, Lottie makes excuses by hiding the letter. She realizes that her father, though kind, will not approve of her work. Shella is curious, and Lottie is afraid that the secret will be revealed, because her friend's talkativeness can ruin everything. Shella invites Lottie to go to tea and helps her get ready, thinking about how to make her friend even more beautiful. Shella lovingly styles Lottie's hair, admiring her curls and turning them into a neat hairstyle. Lottie admires Shella's golden hands as she managed to tame even the most unruly curls. A friend admires Shella's talents, admiring how her hair has changed after the magic hands. An accidental spill of water causes laughter, as Shella managed to cause an incident, but the friendly atmosphere remains. Lottie notes that without Shella's extreme awkwardness, she would be perfect, but that's what makes their relationship special. Shella shows off Lottie's new look with genuine enthusiasm, and Lottie marvels at how thoughtfully the outfit has been put together, expressing admiration. Lottie, with a beaming smile, acknowledges the beauty of the outfit, which helps her feel even more confident and happier at this moment. Lottie thanks Shella, calling her savior, because thanks to her, she was able to transform herself and feel truly special. Shella happily helps Lottie choose the right outfit, giving compliments that inspire her and create a light and friendly atmosphere. Even though Lottie understands that compliments sometimes sound exaggerated, she cannot be angry with Shella for her sincerity and support. Lottie tries on an outfit and accessories, taking advice from Shella, who helps her create a complete and elegant look for going out. Reflecting on her past mistakes, Lottie admits with slight embarrassment that she looks better than she expected, but laughs at the unexpected comment about her style. Lottie, having completed her preparations, comes out in a new outfit. Her graceful appearance attracts attention, emphasizing her sophistication and elegance. Her caution and confusion when confronted with security speaks volumes about her character. She takes steps towards new challenges despite her doubts. With the support of those around her, Lottie is able to cope with her anxiety. She moves forward with determination, leaving her previous worries behind. Lottie notices that her companion Hans looks impressive. His broad shoulders and muscles command respect, but his shining bald head is embarrassing. Lottie's attention becomes increasingly focused on Hans's shiny head, which causes her slight awkwardness and inner laughter. They approach the beautiful mansion of Count Olaf. Lottie notices that the journey was indeed short, but feels a slight tension. Upon entering the mansion, Lottie greets guests. Her warm smile attracts attention, creating an atmosphere of hospitality and ease. When talking to ladies, Lottie asks about their affairs. Her calm tone and politeness evoke a friendly response. She thanks the guests for the invitation, emphasizing that she is doing well thanks to their attention. Her sincerity captivates those present. Cakes are served on the table, which attracts Lottie's attention. She is delighted to meet a friend whom she has not seen for a long time. Lottie notices that one of the cakes has been left especially for her, and she accepts the gesture with gratitude, delighted by the attentions. Inspired by the atmosphere, Lottie prepares an important speech, but suddenly becomes confused when she realizes that the guests' attention has been distracted. One of the ladies reminds them of the purpose of the meeting. The upcoming ball, in honor of Princess Roselia. Lottie concentrates preparing for important discussions. Lottie notices two women discussing different types of butter, as if it were a rivalry, and reflects wryly on the thoroughness of their research. Lottie and her friend Kano joke around, but Lottie doesn't quite share her amusement. Their interaction shows a contrast in their personalities. One is lively, and the other is thoughtful. The narrative switches to an announcement of a grand ball hosted by the royal family. The atmosphere is filled with intrigue and anticipation. Lottie learns that Prince Laud will be attending the ball. This arouses her interest, mixed with a slight irony about the simplicity of his name. Lottie almost loses the thread of the conversation, wondering if such a simple name would suit a prince. Her friend is surprised that she is so thoughtful. The girls exchange rumors about the prince trying to figure out if the stories about his mysterious nature are true. The situation becomes more and more mysterious. While dreaming about Prince Laud, the image of a mysterious man appears. Lottie is infatuated, but admits that she has never seen him. The man, presumably, the prince, smiles mysteriously, which makes Lottie feel like this time things will be different. The reason for the ball is revealed to be a celebration of Princess Rosalia's coming of age. All events seem to be connected to this moment. Lottie realizes she's missed important details and struggles to make sense of what's happening, realizing how much could change at this ball. At Princess Rosalia's ball, noble guests gathered discussing the upcoming meeting with Prince Laud. Everyone was expecting something grand. Lottie, enchanted by the atmosphere of the ball, remembers that this will be the first appearance of the main character of the story and a meeting with the mysterious prince. The girls at the table are whispering excitedly. They dream of finally seeing Prince Laud, who is famous for his incredible beauty. Rumors about the prince make hearts flutter. They say that after meeting him, other men begin to seem expressionless. Lottie hears them asking her about the prince she has already seen. The excitement in their voices is transmitted to her, adding to the tension. One of the girls notes that it is impossible to describe the prince's beauty in words. It is compared to 1,000 poetic lines, but even this is not enough. Lottie thinks, remembering how the prince was described in stories. Images of golden hair and piercing eyes begin to come to life in her mind. She imagines his face, golden hair like sunbeams, blue eyes, like the depths of the sea from which it is impossible to tear yourself away. Lottie meets a blurry image of a prince. In her mind there is only one thing, a charming blonde with blue eyes like in a fairy tale. Lottie recalls the description of the main character, who in her mind seems like a prince from a fairy tale. She wonders what he looks like in reality. She decides to order a new dress from a tailor. But Lottie admits to herself that she is more attracted to Millsy's salon despite ordering from another master's. The girl notices that the conversation among those present is turning to a discussion of outfits. She worries that identical dresses at the ball may cause awkwardness. Her friend asks what dress Lottie chose herself. In response, the girl cleverly avoids the question, mentioning the name of the dressmaker, as if without thinking. Whenever Lottie doesn't want to give a straight answer, she just makes up a random name. She finds it a funny but convenient strategy. After the social event, Lottie thanks the hostess of the meeting. She is genuinely happy with the communication that made the day bright and interesting. The lady of the house invites Lottie to come to the following events. Despite her pride, Lottie realizes that she is not without kindness. During another conversation with another guest, Lottie realizes that it is easiest to talk to people who are similar in character. This creates comfort in communication. Back home, Lottie shares her impressions with her family. She remembers the fun atmosphere of the picnic, although she is a little tired from the active day. Lottie retreats to her room, enjoying the silence. She reflects on her busy day and dreams of the next meeting. Lottie, a beautiful girl with golden hair, feels excited, realizing that her longtime dream is very close, right before her eyes. Her heart is full of anticipation. The little maid, full of enthusiasm, offers to take care of Lottie's hair, but her excessive zeal only causes embarrassment to the girl. The maid continues to ask Lottie with concern what she wants to do first. Take a bath or eat. Lottie is lost in her own thoughts, slightly at a loss as to what to do next. The girl gets out of bed, putting her thoughts in order. She decides to get ready and start the day with a clear head, thinking about the next steps. Lottie is suddenly overcome with a sense of disappointment in herself. She regrets not having prepared better and blames herself for missing the opportunity to study the novel that seemed to be such an important part of her new life. Lottie recalls key events. On the day of Princess Rosemia's coming of age, the main character, Evelyn, is due to go on stage. This knowledge awakens in her a sense of responsibility for the upcoming events. Her memory stops at the bright moments of the novel's plot, but most of the details are lost. This causes Lottie to feel inner unrest and confusion. Lying on the floor, Lottie realizes how long she has been waiting for this moment. Her excitement turns into determination to act, despite her gaps in knowledge. Sometimes she is tormented by dreams of her past life, which prevent her from sleeping and make her think about the strange intersections of her two realities. This gap between dreams and reality becomes her eternal dilemma. However, Lottie finds comfort in her new life, where she has no job and no problems, only her own capital food and comfort. Her world seems easy and pleasant despite her inner experiences. Lottie recalls a difficult past life. She was oppressed by teachers, parents, and even students. She feels lost in a world full of negativity. Lottie's parents, long divorced, constantly put pressure on her with their expectations. This only added to her stress, making her life unbearable. Lottie has lived 25 years without love or happiness. Her past seems empty and full of pain to her, which adds to the contrast with her new life. Having moved to a new world, Lottie found herself in a rich family. She is surrounded by kind and wealthy people, which became an unexpected happiness for her. Now her life is calm, which sometimes even seems boring. Lottie reflects on the changes and how fate gave her this chance. Lottie reflects on her destiny as a gift from heaven. She is grateful for the opportunity to be reborn and correct the mistakes of the past. However, she regrets her role in the new world, dreaming of being not a secondary character, but something more. She feels sad for the ugly characters created to contrast with the main characters, and she empathizes with their fate. Lottie will soon be able to see the castle described in the stories. She is filled with excitement and looks forward to this moment. She decides to occupy herself by thinking about the preparations, and with a smile suggests trying to make popcorn to brighten up the wait. The morning starts off stormy for Lottie. Her maid persistently persuades her to go buy a new dress, anxiously worrying about her appearance. Lottie wakes up irritably, and her assistant declares that she must make a dazzling impression on everyone at the ball. During the conversation, it turns out that the purpose of all the preparations is to attract the prince's attention. Lottie is surprised that this information is already known to everyone. The maid, full of enthusiasm, sings and dreams of fashionable outfits, but Lottie categorically declares that she is not going to buy a new dress. The statement shocks the maid, who cannot understand why Lottie would refuse such an important acquisition. Lottie explains that she recently received a new dress from her aunt and thinks it would be a waste to buy another one. However, Lottie's gaze is so convincing that the maid trying to resist realizes her helplessness before her charm. Inspired, the maid decides to study makeup to help Lottie look even better, putting all her energy into it. For the sake of her mission, she leaves for training, intending to bring back new knowledge and experience to the mansion to transform Lottie. Lottie spends her time trying to make popcorn, but all her experiments end in failure, adding irony to her everyday life. Lottie bursts into the house and enthusiastically announces her return. She is clearly full of energy and joy, but she does not notice how she is frightening those around her. Seeing her mistress in a charred state, Lottie begins to fuss with surprise and alarm. Her concern is mixed with comical confusion. Lottie helps her mistress to tidy herself up by choosing jewelry. Lottie sincerely wants to help, but the mistress indifferently agrees to any brooch. The girls actively discuss clothes, choosing options that will suit the light skin of the owner. Everyone is involved in the process, creating a cozy atmosphere. After several attempts, they find the perfect dress. Lottie and her friend discuss the details with excitement, praising the well-chosen combinations. The hostess, visibly tired, jokingly says that she is about to die from fatigue, but patiently waits until the outfit is finally ready. The workers enthusiastically decorate the outfit with pearls, rejoicing in the work done. Their genuine joy charges the owner with positive energy. Lottie thanks the girls for their concern, but sadly notes that her role is not the main one. She remains thoughtful, reflecting on her humble position. Everyone finishes their preparations and invites the hostess to look at herself in the mirror. The atmosphere is filled with joyful anticipation of the final result. The outfit is complete and the owner looks amazing. Lottie and the others are happy that their efforts have lived up to expectations. The transformation inspires everyone. Lottie is amazed to remember a past life where her friend was getting married. She admires her friend's wedding dress and feels the envy of those around her. Looking at herself in the mirror, Lottie is surprised by her beauty. She is not used to seeing herself like this and admires the result. The servants put the finishing touches on her outfit. Lottie happily notes how gorgeous she looks, enjoying her transformation. People around her notice the changes in Lottie. She always hid her face under her bangs, but now her beauty does not go unnoticed. Her mother is surprised by how feminine Lottie has become. She compares her daughter to herself in her youth and is proud of her appearance. Lottie is ready to leave in the carriage. Her eyes are full of determination, and she is internally preparing for the next important moment in her life. Arriving at the castle, Lottie prepares to meet those who are waiting for her. She is full of impatience to see the long-awaited scene with her own eyes. She meets two people, a young woman with long, dark hair, and a man who strikes her with his elegance. The carriage pulls up to a magnificent castle. Lottie marvels at the grandeur of the surrounding architecture. At the entrance, Lottie is greeted joyfully by her friend Kano. Their meeting is full of emotions, promising many further events. Lottie meets her friend, who is genuinely surprised by her beauty. Lottie replies that she just put on a little makeup, and her friend returns the admiration with a compliment. Suddenly, the arrival of Prince Loda Halen and Princess Rosamaya. Halen is announced. This makes the friends wary and distracts them from their conversation. Lottie sees something fall, and it shocks her. She can't help but be surprised as she watches the scene closely. An elegant man with blonde hair radiating nobility enters the room. Lottie realizes that her thoughts are starting to get confused. Lottie's gaze falls on the man, and she remembers something important. Her past is connected to this man, and the discovery stuns her. A friend shares her impressions of meeting an actor nicknamed Elfman. She conveys her emotions to her friend. The friend admits to being struck by his charm and enchantment. Lottie feels her own experiences echo in this story. The friend expresses her emotions vividly, praising the man's beauty and charisma. Lottie begins to understand her feelings better. Lottie remembers scoffing at her friend's reaction, but now she shares her surprise and admits her mistake. Lottie decides that she must do everything possible to meet the prince. She realizes that this man plays an important role in her life. Lottie watches the blonde man with his exquisite appearance. His beauty strikes her to the depths of her soul, and she cannot take her eyes off him. Lottie reflects on humanity and her place in society. Her thoughts are filled with excitement because she feels that she is unfairly deprived of attention. Lottie compares herself to Rondimio, realizing that they were both drawn by the same artist. She reflects on her caricatured appearance and the blonde's perfection. She notices her friend whispering that she has bulging eyes. Lottie realizes that the blonde is not only handsome, but physically perfect. The blonde man gets attention from all sides. His confidence frightens Lottie because he personifies the main character with unrivaled charisma. Lottie suddenly wonders about Ibelin's whereabouts, wondering why she hasn't shown up yet, adding to her inner unease. She notices how the blonde man shines with his beauty, which strikes her to the depths of her soul. Lottie realizes that his appearance outshines everything around him. Everyone looks at Rondimio, and Lottie notices how he pays attention to Ibeline. She concludes that he would be an idiot not to notice her. Lottie is delighted to see that Ibeline is finally entering the plot. A glimmer of hope for an interesting development crosses her mind. Ibeline reads a book indifferently, as if ignoring the company. Lottie is surprised by her calm and does not understand how she remains so detached. A girl with long black hair reads a book, ignoring a blonde man with an arrogant look who is trying to get her attention. He is confused by her indifference. She turns the page, remaining lost in her thoughts. People around her begin to whisper, watching her behavior, which causes surprise. Her cold indifference puzzles those around her, but she does not react, concentrating on her thoughts. The blonde feels ignored, which is new to him. He moves closer, trying to see if she even notices him. However, her gaze remains focused on the book, completely ignoring his presence. Her indifference awakens a strange feeling in him that he has not encountered before. Her green eyes seem like a riddle that he wants to solve. Another girl observing the situation realizes that the events are repeating the plot of the novel she read. She is amazed by their exact coincidence. The blonde, pretending to be unperturbed, touches his hair and laughs, trying to hide his embarrassment. He thinks the situation is funny. The golden-haired girl notices this and feels goosebumps run through her. She realizes that everything is going according to the book's scenario. Lottie the blonde begins to realize that she is inside the story of the novel. She devises a plan to use this to her advantage. She notices that the blonde can achieve everything thanks to his appearance, despite his self-confident and sometimes stupid behavior. Lottie tries to understand the behavior of those around her by listening to their reactions. She considers how simple actions can seem impressive to others. Shouts of admiration can be heard from the crowd of girls, many expressing surprise and delight. They discuss the attractiveness of the crown prince, dreaming of his attention. Lottie watches the crown prince and reflects on his appearance. She admits that he is indeed handsome, even if she finds it difficult to put into words. She wonders in confusion about the development of the situation. At the same time, a girl is visible in the background, whose presence makes Lottie tense up. The arrival of the emperor and queen is announced. Lottie is surprised by their important status and prepares to meet the monarchs with a little excitement. The emperor and queen appear before the public. Lottie realizes that these are important people whose genes have been passed on to the crown prince and draws the appropriate conclusions. Lottie notices that the emperor seems unexpectedly simple, which leaves her with a feeling of discrepancy between expectations and reality. She can hardly contain her emotions as she watches the Emperor. Lottie compares him to a good-natured neighbor, which makes her smile inside. The Emperor thanks those gathered for their participation in the celebration. He congratulates Rosaline on her 17th birthday, emphasizing the importance of this event. Lottie admits that the Emperor managed to attract the attention of everyone present with his speech. She enjoys the warm and pleasant atmosphere of the celebration. At the ball, Lottie tries to keep the attention of her friend Rondemio, but he suddenly disappears. The guests around her are excitedly discussing the situation. Lottie learns that the crown prince has left the hall. Her friend is surprised by how quickly this happened, expressing regret. The girls are lost in dreams of Rondemio, struck by his beauty. Their admiration grows, and one of them confesses that she has fallen in love. The atmosphere of the ball is heating up. All the guests are captivated by the image of the crown prince, turning the hall into a place of romantic dreams. Lottie is incredulous when she notices that even her friend has fallen victim to Rondemio's charm, which leaves her with conflicting emotions. Confused, Lottie asks her friend about her feelings. Her friend admits that her heart beats faster when she thinks about the prince. Lottie decides to support her friend, but mentally promises to stop her if this leads to rash actions. Lottie silently wishes for her friend to overcome her crush. Realizing that the situation is hopeless, she decides not to say anything. A friend makes a toast to a future full of hope. Lottie, despite her doubts, decides to play along with her at this moment. Things get heated when it is mentioned that the crown prince may soon change. Lottie is conflicted about the future. Lottie ponders her fate, realizing that commoners like her will never get to meet the departed crown prince, but her dreams still remain. The narrator hints that events will soon change, and the next key moment will only occur under certain circumstances. It is indicated that Ibelin is to meet the second protagonist, Duke Kenneth, which will be a significant milestone in her story. The next important stage will be Ibelin's meeting with Arvin the Master of the Magic Tower, who is the third main character. The scene shifts to the garden of the Imperial Palace, where Ibelin, according to the plot, will first meet Duke Kenneth. Arvin appears in the busy streets of the capital, adding mystery, and his role in the development of events begins to emerge. Lottie notices that everything is going according to the plot of the novel, remembering important dates that she needs to take into account for planning. She clearly remembers that the meeting between Ibelin and Kenneth took place on the last day of the banquet celebration. Lottie calculates that she has 5 days to act before Ibelin meets with the Duke and decides to act decisively. Determined, Lottie gathers the team and calls everyone into action, symbolically offering to make popcorn in preparation for the exciting events. Lottie, in a smart dress and with a graceful smile, discusses her habits with her friend. She thoughtfully replies that she might stop drinking lattes, as if taking an important step towards change. At the ball, Lottie attracts everyone's attention. In the midst of a lively conversation, one of the girls suddenly remembers Princess Rosalia, who seemed lost among the guests. Rosalia is the center of attention when her eyes lock with Lottie. The moment is filled with sparks, as if an invisible connection has been formed, between them attracting the attention of everyone around them. The sudden encounter makes Lottie embarrassed, and she starts to get a nosebleed. She tries to hide her embarrassment, but everyone sees how beautiful Roselia is. Lottie, despite her shyness, admires Roselia. Her thoughts are filled with emotions, but she knows she must cope with this feeling while remaining dignified. The story takes a dramatic turn when it turns out that Lottie has fallen in love with Kenneth, a mysterious character who unfortunately does not reciprocate her feelings. Roselia finds solace in her friendship with Ebeline. They support each other, and Lottie sees how Roselia treats Ebeline with respect and warmth. Emotions reach their peak when viewers comment on what is happening. They are surprised by what is happening, realizing how unusual the relationships between the characters are. Lottie is captivated by Roselia's smile, but realizes that every smile is meant for Kenneth. This makes her think about her feelings and the situation. In the end, Lottie reflects on how the beautiful Roselia, remaining an outsider, attracts the attention of everyone around her, finding harmony in her uniqueness. Lottie amazes those around her with her charming appearance. Her image glows with soft warmth, and her eyes show an inner light. Lottie is watched by a young man, wondering how to win her favor. His confidence and style underline his goal. Lottie decides to leave, realizing she has seen enough. Her clear gaze radiates calm and wisdom. Before leaving, Lottie speaks to her friend, explaining that she has things to do. Her friend is left slightly surprised by her haste. The friend stays where she is and thinks about her own things. Her thoughts are filled with anticipation and plans. For the evening, she feels comfortable and confident. Lottie relays a request to her friend to keep an eye on an important person, expressing hope and ease, but mentally doubting success. On her way home, Lottie becomes lost in thoughts about love, watching the streetlights flicker, and thinking about romantic stories. Reflecting on life, Lottie comes to the conclusion that youth is a time of unrequited love. Realizing how these feelings shape people, her thoughts shift to more mundane matters. She ponders the income of novelists and smiles at the thought of the pleasant side of creativity. Lottie returns home. Her daily life is full of things to do when suddenly the maid calls her with important news. Lottie raves about the incredible beauty of a man whose eyes are like a bottomless lake and whose skin resembles porcelain. She keeps talking, and her interlocutor mentally calls her a chatterbox. The interviewee agrees that the rumors about the man are true, adding that his beauty is so stunning that one can be surprised that she is still alive after meeting him. Lottie begins to ask if that same man has noticed her, and if she has managed to win his attention. This causes surprise and slight embarrassment in the second girl. Lottie explains that she was watching the man from a distance with the other ladies. The other woman, slightly disappointed, repeats that it was from a distance. After a short pause, Lottie lets out a mysterious laugh, leaving her interlocutor wondering what she meant. The interlocutor is clearly worried. Lottie jokes that it can't all end that easily. Her words and actions frighten her interlocutor, who begins to think that Lottie is a little strange and unpredictable. Lottie, ignoring her interlocutor's reaction, declares that she is going to take a bath. She quickly runs away, leaving her interlocutor confused. After a busy day, night falls, and Lottie sleeps peacefully. In the morning, she cheerfully heads to the kitchen, where she greets the cook with enthusiasm, causing him to yelp nervously. Lottie remembers trying to make popcorn a week ago, but instead, creating a fire show, the memory clearly embarrasses her. Despite all the oddities, Lottie remains optimistic, showing that even mistakes become fun moments in her everyday life. The worried cook apologizes to Lottie, feeling guilty that his impulsiveness almost ruined the morning's cooking. Lottie looks at him in bewilderment. Lottie notices that the cook is clearly nervous about her presence. She decides that his fear is caused by the unexpected visit at an early hour. Lottie assures the chef that she will be up to the task this time. However, the chef looks at her, uncertainly, doubting her promise. Lottie happily declares her desire to become a real culinary master. The chef looks depressed, but agrees to give her a chance. The cook's memories of Lottie's previous mishaps in the kitchen surface, and he quietly hopes that she won't turn the kitchen into a disaster zone. Lottie laughs a slightly evil note, urging the cook to rely on her. He feels a growing sense of unease. Lottie apologizes for her past mistakes, assuring him that she will do it right this time. The cook looks thoughtfully at her face. Lottie thanks the chef for the chance. He sighs, agreeing to trust her with the kitchen again, despite his reservations. Lottie prepares confidently for the culinary process, but the chef reminds her of simple safety rules, fearing another failure. The chef's suspicious look indicates his doubts, although he decides to take a risk and give Lottie a chance to prove her abilities. Lottie, confident in her genius, declares herself a culinary master, surprising the chef. She resolutely takes on the task of making popcorn, convincing everyone that her efforts will surely be crowned with success. Lottie adds the corn kernels to the pan with confidence and inspiration. She imagines the triumph to come as she watches everything cook and already anticipates the moment when she can proudly display the result. Lottie is delighted to hear the sounds coming from the frying pan. A smile lights up her face. She mentally convinces herself that the process is under control, and she will be able to surprise everyone with her abilities. It's time to open the lid. Lottie lifts it triumphantly, expecting to see delicious golden popcorn. But her delight turns to shock when she discovers that everything is burnt. Disappointment washes over Lottie. She looks at the black pieces and can't believe how things turned out. Her confidence crumbles, giving way to confusion. Lottie is overcome with emotion, and she can't hold back her tears. She laments that she couldn't succeed despite her diligence and confidence in victory. Feeling helpless, Lottie complains about her inability to find help or a prescription. Her frustration is further heightened by the realization of her own mistake and failure. The cook, observing Lottie's emotions, tries to support her, but is perplexed by how seriously she worries about ordinary popcorn. Her persistence amazes him. Lottie continues to lament the unfairness of the situation while expressing her determination not to give in. She is not ready to admit defeat, even if everything has gone wrong. Realizing her mistakes, Lottie understands that failures are part of the journey. Despite her disappointment, she decides to continue improving, promising herself to achieve success in the future. Lottie, a blonde with brown eyes, is sad thinking about how wrong it is to watch a movie without popcorn. Her emotions are expressed in a look of disappointment and a quiet sigh of longing. Suddenly, the chef approaches her, offering to forget about popcorn and try other snacks. His cheerful face reflects confidence in his proposals, which in his opinion are not inferior to the usual delicacy. He mentions dried fruits, adding that they are not only healthy, but also incredibly tasty. Lottie imagines their bright taste and freshness, which arouses her interest, but does not change her mood. Lottie considers this, but her preoccupation with popcorn gets the better of her. She firmly states that for a true viewer, popcorn is an essential part of the ritual and calls the alternatives unsuitable. At that moment, she realizes that she almost fell for the cook's trick. An inner voice tells her that the cunning cook used her weakness to make her give up her favorite delicacy. The cook, not giving up, continues the conversation. His thoughtful look indicates that he wants to offer something new. His whole appearance expresses confidence, as if he knows how to convince Lottie. He assures Lottie that the problem is not with the popcorn at all, but with the quality of the corn. His suggestion sounds convincing, and he suggests trying a different type of grain. Lottie remembers trying different types of corn, but still wonders if the quality of the kernel really does affect the taste. Her gaze becomes more serious. She realizes the chef has a point and muses on the variety of grain quality. A new variety might just bring back the joy of popcorn and movie nights. Finally, Lottie's eyes fall on a brightly colored package of popcorn. Deciding to give the chef a chance, she accepts his offer, regaining hope of enjoying popcorn to the fullest. Lottie explains that she used the wrong ingredients for her dishes, which is why the result did not meet expectations. The chef, concerned about the situation, decides to immediately go with her to the market to fix the situation. Lottie's assistant Daefu suddenly undergoes a transformation. His appearance becomes charismatic, and even his mustache acquires a sophisticated look. Lottie is delighted with this change and believes that now everything will be under control. With a determined attitude, Lottie and Daefu rush to the market. Their enthusiasm and confidence attract the attention of those around them. Lottie is determined to correct her mistakes and find a better product. At the market, they begin to look for the perfect corn. The seller offers them a special variety brought from the south. He convinces them that this variety is sweet and worth its high price. Lottie decides not to be stingy. With incredible confidence, she points to the entire corn stand and declares that she will take it all. Her determination amazes those around her. Lottie does everything with grace and elegance. When buying, her charisma and style win over the salesperson who agrees. The team completes the purchase in high spirits. Using the corn she bought, Lottie makes popcorn. The process becomes a real celebration. The popcorn literally flies all over the kitchen, creating an atmosphere of fun. After trying the popcorn, Lottie notices that the taste is still not perfect. Her face expresses thoughtfulness. It seems that she is missing something for the complete harmony of taste. The chef prompts Lottie to add salt. His confident smile restores the girl's optimism. She listens and begins cooking with enthusiasm again. The addition of salt results in perfect popcorn. Lottie happily enjoys the taste, knowing that she has found the key to success. Lottie was delighted to discover popcorn. This delicacy amazed her with its taste and aroma so much that she decided that she could not enjoy it alone, sharing her emotions with others. Seeing Lottie running enthusiastically down the hall, the maids frantically tried to tell her the important news. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that their cries barely reached her. Lottie, despite her playful nature, decided to try sharing her popcorn. She persuaded others to try it, and they were surprised to discover how delicious it was, turning their surprise into satisfaction. During the tasting, Lottie decided to involve everyone around her. She excitedly offered everyone to try turning the process into an exciting event, as if she were flying a plane. While Lottie was enjoying her popcorn, someone around her tried to talk some sense into her. They reminded her that it was not appropriate for a grown lady to run around so energetically, but her joy could not be stopped. Her confidence and serenity so impressed those around her that even their stern looks softened. Lottie believed that her imperturbability could have touched even Karl Marx. A sense of accomplishment dawned on Lottie as she was able to share her joy with others. She radiated contentment and confidence, proud of her achievement. Lottie considered making more popcorn. She decided that she needed just enough so as not to overdo it, and moved on to deeper thoughts about the importance of balance. Her thoughts about the dangers of trans fats and cholesterol sparked an internal debate. She realized that pleasure sometimes requires sacrifice, but moderation is more important for harmony. Lottie wrote down her thoughts about popcorn, noting the importance of counting the quantities. She remembered how she had given up fighting for a prince, choosing to live a simple, quiet life, enjoying the moment. Lottie begins to wonder about her figure after a remark from her maid. She is confused and wonders if she has really gained weight, but tries to remain calm despite the feeling of awkwardness. The maid helps her tighten the corset, but the process becomes painful. Lottie breathes heavily and complains of fatigue, which increases her suspicions about being overweight and causes even more anxiety. Lottie begins to have difficulty breathing and begins to panic. She looks in the mirror and thinks that her figure has changed. Her uncertainty is reinforced by her assumption that she has actually gained weight. She blames herself for overindulging in popcorn. Her sadness is heightened by the realization of how much sweets she has consumed in recent days, and she begins to wonder about the consequences. Lottie remembers enjoying different flavors of popcorn with her friends. The happy moments are marred by worries about her appearance, but she can't resist the pleasure. She realizes that the banquet is approaching and loses confidence in her appearance. Her determination to remain beautiful and dignified increases, but fatigue begins to take over. Lottie shares her concerns with her friend, admitting that she struggles to live up to the ideals. Her thoughts about competing with other girls add to the tension, but she tries to keep her temper in check. Despite trying to look perfect, Lottie feels that it is not enough to attract the attention of the crown prince. Her insecurity grows, but she continues to fight for her feelings. She notices how beautiful other girls are and starts comparing herself to them. Her friend tries to support her, but Lottie is still plagued by doubts and worries. Lottie finally comes to the conclusion that her chances of success are practically zero. Her friend tries to instill confidence in her, but Lottie feels the pressure and continues to doubt herself. Lottie, a blonde with brown eyes, is upset and crying. Her friend accuses her of often using her tears to beg for more popcorn, but after much persuasion, she is allowed to wear a simple dress for the event. Lottie's mother, the Viscountess, bids her farewell with tears in her eyes. Expressing her concern, Lottie is embarrassed by the overprotectiveness, but assures her that everything will be fine. She laughs easily at the situation. Lottie happily plans to make popcorn when she gets home, as hot popcorn is her favorite treat. She sets off walking happily in her outfit, holding a basket of popcorn. Upon arrival at the castle, Lottie admires its majestic architecture. She notices that the meeting will not take place in the banquet hall, but in the garden, where an interesting event awaits her. In the garden, Lottie discovers that someone has climbed a tree. She suspects that it is Evelyn who has decided to fix the unstable bird nest, attracted by her curiosity. Hidden behind the bushes, Lottie watches the proceedings. Her gaze is caught by familiar bunnies, wearing 3D glasses crunching on popcorn. She greets them with a small grin, reminding herself how long it has been since she's seen them. Finally, Lottie spots Evelyn in the tree, who as expected has shown interest in the nest. Lottie admires her courage and energy, and continues to watch the proceedings with interest. Evelyn slips unluckily on a tree, but notices a nest of eggs. She is surprised at her own courage and slightly taken aback by the situation. Lottie waits with bated breath for her to do so. Lottie is overcome with emotion as her dreams of adventure come true right before her eyes. Like in a novel, she watches it all unfold, not believing that it is possible. A young man named Kenneth, his slender figure and penetrating gaze, immediately attract attention. He asks what is going on, and Lottie realizes that the moment has come to meet the most popular hero of the Empire. Kenneth appears in the forest, radiating confidence and nobility. His refined appearance and charismatic speech make people around him pay attention to him, emphasizing his importance and influence in society. Lottie hides behind the bushes and watches Evelyn, who has climbed a tree and looks worried. The sound of branches snapping attracts Kenneth's attention, who notices the strange surroundings. Lottie laughs and remarks that Kenneth sounds very pleasant, and jokes about the situation. Kenneth turns to Evelyn, asking questions about her unexpected location. Evelyn is genuinely puzzled as to why she should know Kenneth. Lottie, hiding in the bushes, thinks it's obvious and continues to watch their conversation with a grin. Evelyn suggests that Kenneth may be someone of noble birth, but her suggestion seems unlikely to her. She still doubts his status. Kenneth smiles slightly as he asks Evelyn to come down, but she admits that she is stuck. Lottie continues to watch their interaction with interest, laughing to herself. Evelyn explains that she climbed the tree to save a bird's nest that was about to fall. Her sincerity and concern for nature impress Kenneth. Evelyn admits that she only wanted to help the birds. Her words sound sincere and touching. Kenneth decides to help her get out of this situation. Kenneth extends his hand and assures Evelyn that he will help her down safely. His determination and kindness inspire confidence in her, and she agrees. Kenneth deftly lowers Evelyn from the tree. Lottie watches and notes with admiration that Kenneth acts not only quickly, but also with true nobility worthy of a prince. Lottie, transformed into a fish, engages in a kind of competition with Kenneth. He catches up with her, but the voiceover reminds him that the true result will only become clear at the very end. Lottie tries to eavesdrop on the conversation between Kenneth and the mysterious girl. She panics when she can't understand what they're saying, forcing her to think of ways to get closer. Lottie creeps closer, trying to hear their conversation. Her movements become comical, but she is focused on her goal, to find out what they are talking about. Lottie can't stand the tension and suddenly screams, giving herself away. Surprised, Kenneth and his interlocutor turn around and the girl is confused. Realizing her mistake, Lottie becomes embarrassed, trying to justify herself to herself. She decides to pretend that she was just walking by and hopes to hide her excitement. Kenneth stares at Lottie, which brings back unpleasant memories for her. She realizes that he sees her as a weird fan, which only adds to her discomfort. Lottie feels humiliated when she thinks back to her prejudices against fans. She always despised those who persecuted their idols, but now she finds herself in this situation. Kenneth says he deliberately retreated away from the banquet hall because he was tired of the noise. He is surprised that Lottie knew of his whereabouts, which puts her in an awkward position. Lottie tries to justify herself by saying that she was looking for a quiet place to eat outside, but Kenneth clearly doubts her words, which casts doubt on her version of events. Kenneth expresses his disbelief, and Lottie realizes that her words sound unconvincing. However, her attempt to wriggle out of it sparks a tense yet sincere dialogue between them. Lottie, desperately trying to justify herself to Kenneth, assures him that she was not following him. However, the young man, based on his painful past, refuses to believe her, believing that everyone is saying the same thing. Kenneth is lost in his thoughts. He remembers his childhood filled with persecution that destroyed his trust in people. These traumas turned him into a man who hates women. Lottie, with a bowl of popcorn, continues to insist on her innocence, swearing by her strange promises. However, Kenneth remains cold and unyielding, ignoring her attempts at reconciliation. Kenneth is irritated, and his tension is growing. He does not trust Lottie and considers her intrusive. Even her food, which she uses to try to soften the situation, causes his inner indignation. Lottie, despite her best efforts, cannot control her emotions. Her irritation turns into a desire to annoy Kenneth. In her mental anger, she even imagines throwing popcorn at him. Evelyn suddenly steps in, decisively breaking up the argument. She defends Lottie, believing Kenneth's behavior to be unfair, and reminds him that she was not stalking him. Kenneth is struck by Evelyn's words, but her beauty catches his attention. He discreetly admires her luxurious hair, marveling at her confidence and nobility. Lottie, seeing Kenneth's reaction to Evelyn, smiles wickedly. She decides that Evelyn is capable of dealing with his coldness and is pleased with her lucky ally in this drama. Evelyn wants Kenneth to realize that he is wrong. She hopes that he will accept the truth, avoiding further hurt feelings. Lottie, in turn, makes fun of the situation. Evelyn tells Kenneth that even if Lottie was following him, her actions were motivated by love, not a desire to harm. She appeals to his sense of compassion. Evelyn emotionally intervenes in the argument, defending her honor and denouncing her opponent. She demonstrates determination and righteousness, not allowing the situation to get out of control despite the tension around her. A conflict flares up between Evelyn and Kenneth. She accuses him of indifference and self-interest, while he doubts her sincere motives. The dialogue is filled with tension and differences of opinion on justice. Evelyn and Kenneth suddenly notice a change in the atmosphere of their conversation. A barely perceptible spark of understanding runs between them, and they begin to perceive each other differently, surprised by their own feelings. Lottie, watching the proceedings, expresses her thoughts on the strangeness of the situation. She feels slightly embarrassed and interested, while Kenneth, on the contrary, finds it fascinating watching the events unfold with a gentle smile. Lottie ponders the unexpected progression of the situation, marveling at the speed of change. She wonders how Evelyn can influence others so quickly, becoming increasingly lost in her own thoughts. Kenneth's thoughts begin to take an interest in Evelyn, and he finds himself becoming increasingly attracted to her. Her boldness and unpredictability begin to attract him, causing unexpected emotions. Lottie feels that she is being reduced to a secondary role against which Evelyn shines even more brightly. She experiences mixed feelings of disappointment and envy as she watches Evelyn. Lottie has a hard time accepting her love, feeling like a victim of her own emotions. She is frustrated with her situation, believing that her role in this story is too insignificant. Lottie distances herself from the events, preferring to watch Kenneth and Evelyn's conflict as if she were a spectator at a play. She is irritated by Kenneth's attention to Evelyn, but she hides her feelings behind sarcasm. Kenneth, while remaining blunt, hints that Lottie's presence irritates him. Meanwhile, he increasingly focuses on Evelyn, which increases the tension and underlines the intensity of their relationship. Lottie, trying to understand why Kenneth is constantly picking on her, is genuinely surprised. Her thoughts are seething with indignation, and his gaze clearly shows contempt. She sees no reason for such an attitude. Kenneth quips at her, wondering how anyone could be so condescending towards someone like her. Lottie clenches her fist in response, showing her willingness to stand up for herself. Lottie reflects on her changing feelings. She admits that, contrary to expectations, she is beginning to get a strange pleasure from their verbal sparring, although it is difficult for her to understand. Kenneth, with a mocking expression on his face, asks his companion if she heard Lottie's remark. His sarcasm does not go unnoticed, and she in turn can hardly contain her anger. Lottie and Kenneth have a tense clash of eyes. Lottie suddenly hits him, explaining it was an accident, which becomes the climax of their verbal battle. At the end of her tether, Lottie quickly and forcefully inserts popcorn into Kenneth's nostrils, causing him genuine confusion. The scene gains comic tension. Kenneth suffers trying to maintain his dignity, but Lottie does not hide her pleasure in the situation. However, his gaze reflects an unexpected vulnerability that makes Lottie think. Realizing that the situation is getting tense, Lottie decides to run away. Her companion thanks her, but Kenneth takes the opportunity to reproach Lottie, calling her crazy. Despite the knowledge of the risk, Lottie continues to revel in the victory. Her taunts of Kenneth ring loudly, but inside she knows that challenging him is tantamount to suicide. Kenneth remains true to his knightly principles, not drawing his sword against women or children. However, the thought of his popcorn sword makes Lottie laugh, ending their tense interaction. Lottie, in a fit of despair, realizes that she needs to survive in a cruel world. When the situation becomes critical, she finds the strength to defend herself. Despite her fear of Kenneth and his cold determination, morning brings relief when Lottie, enjoying the sun, thanks fate for meeting again. Her energy and smile suddenly break her companion's gloom, causing her to feel mixed feelings. Lottie, caught up in her monologue, fails to notice that her hair has become tangled. Taking care of it becomes a symbol of restoring order and calm to her life, as she explains how she has dealt with injustice. With a smile, she states her principles: to reward goodness and punish evil. Her companion is astonished by this frankness, and Lottie continues, declaring that her mission is to implement justice. Lottie mysteriously says that she will tell her story later. Her companion is puzzled by this, but Lottie confidently assures that everything will become clear later, leaving a slight intrigue. Lottie decides to leave her companion smilingly, mentioning that she shouldn't know all the secrets. She walks into the room, leaving behind mixed emotions and a little chaos in the wake of her words. She begins writing a plan, taking the matter seriously. Lottie decides to briefly outline her story to find a solution, demonstrating her firm determination. However, her attempts to call for help lead to disappointment. Without giving up, she tries another approach, believing that she can find a way out of the situation. Inspired by the idea, she decides to develop a new plan. Lottie analyzes her options, realizing that the only salvation is to take a strong position. Instead of relying on others, Lottie chooses to improve herself. She strives to become a master swordsman, ready to face challenges while still holding the symbolic twig. Lottie dives into the water, contemplating the possibility of reincarnation or a new life. Her internal monologue is full of sarcasm as she accidentally hits her face on the bucket, demonstrating her awkwardness. She makes a plan to approach a girl named Abelin, seeing her as the key to her goals. However, she is unsure how to gain her trust, given Abelin's loneliness in the original story. Lottie recalls how Abelin used to be friends with a lady who betrayed her because of her infatuation with the crown prince. This woman dealt Abelin a blow, having fallen into the clutches of the villainess's intrigues. The girl analyzes that the actions of that traitor were in vain, like dew evaporating in the sun. Lottie decides that she will do everything right, and this will bring her success. She sarcastically wonders whether death by strange circumstances, such as accidentally getting popcorn in your nose, is commendable. Lottie considers disappearing from the world a harsh punishment, laughing at it. Lottie is outraged by the stupidity of those around her, including high-ranking people. However, her tension develops into physical discomfort, a spasm in her back. Lottie collapses in a fit of thought and emotion, lying on the floor. She wonders again how she can get closer to Ibelin so that their relationship becomes meaningful. After thinking, she falls asleep, but a strange dream takes hold of her. Angry faces, threats, and attacks. She screams, facing unexpected chaos and fear. Lottie wakes up in a panic and jumps up to realize it was all just a dream. This moment makes her realize the awkwardness and absurdity of the situation. She looks around the house she is in, commenting to herself that the dream was absurd. Lottie ironically concludes her thoughts, preparing herself for new challenges. Lottie wakes up with an uneasy feeling before dawn. Her thoughts are full of doubts and forebodings, but her anxiety is compounded by the arrival of the mysterious Kenneth yesterday. It seems to her that something important is about to happen. Arvin appears holding a magic staff. He stands out for his independence, owns a magic tower, but despite his power, he looks relaxed. Lottie notices a red spot on his face and feels embarrassed. Arvin, with his angelic appearance, turns out to have a rough character. His strength inspires fear. But next to Lottie, he is transformed into a meek and embarrassed person. Their first meeting happened by chance on the street where a quarrel ensued. Lottie prepares to leave the house, not wanting to run into her mother returning from a walk. She notices that she is too tired after getting up early, but decides to go to the publishing house to take her mind off things. Lottie notices a stir in the street. As she passes the shop windows, she is glad to have some free time. Her way leads to the publisher, where she hopes to spend the day doing something to avoid the gloom. At the publishing house, she is greeted with respect. Lottie asks to tell the boss that she has arrived. Her arrival causes a little excitement, as she is known as an important person for this place. Lottie reflects on how the publishing house used to be small and inconspicuous, but thanks to her, it became popular. Suddenly, there is a noise and the staff rushes to help the master, creating chaos. Lottie is greeted with joy. She is shown respect, emphasizing the importance of her visit. The staff expresses gratitude that she has come, creating a pleasant and warm atmosphere. Lottie remembers the first time she came here with a manuscript 3 years ago. At the time, she was looked at with skepticism, but her work unexpectedly became a bestseller, changing the publisher's attitude towards her. The publisher who once disdained her now literally worships her. Her success story is inspiring, and the atmosphere around her is permeated with a sense of pride and achievement. Young writer Lottie reflects on how people treat her. She recalls being called different names: lady, writer, and then master. These words reflect her growing confidence and success as a writer. Her interlocutor humorously points out her sophistication, calling her smell snobbish. Lottie, without losing her composure, responds with a slight mockery, demonstrating her sharp reaction to his remarks. In the conversation, Lottie says she needs more time for her next job. Her interlocutor is concerned that the process is taking so long. Lottie calmly explains that she is currently focused on other important matters. Lottie mentions exporting her books, which surprises her interlocutor. She mentions the kingdoms where she planned to send her works, proving that her writing has gone international. She proudly notes the positive reaction from readers abroad and decides to send more copies. The interlocutor, delighted by the scale of her success, continues to listen attentively. Lottie talks about the network of stores that help sell her books. She explains that she has recently opened more stores to reach a larger audience and strengthen her position in the market. With a triumphant smile, Lottie realizes how far she has come. She rejoices at the success that has exceeded her expectations and humorously declares that she is now in business, fully absorbed in her projects. Lottie keeps her earnings at the publishing house because she hides her writing. In conversation, she recalls an employee who explained the phenomenon of her book's popularity as something exceptional, comparing them to masterpieces. She is given money for her sales and promises to return with even greater success. The interlocutor, amazed by her enthusiasm, asks where Lottie spends all her money. She answers mysteriously, keeping the intrigue. Lottie jokingly replies that her goal is luxury. The interlocutor, not understanding, smiles. As Lottie leaves, she enjoys the day and reflects on her success, fully confident of her place in the world of literature. Lottie, an elegant girl with long golden locks, is walking down the street, thinking about a snack. Suddenly, her eyes fall on a hungry child begging for help on the side of the road. Lottie freezes when she sees the emaciated boy. She is struck by the contrast between the well-being around her and the child's plight. She experiences deep sadness, realizing the injustice of the situation. Lottie notices a connection between this child and the mysterious events mentioned in her memories. She is captivated by the idea that this could be an important clue to past events. The story shows a past where others helped children in need, but faced threats from ill-wishers. This reveals the dark aspects of life around her and makes Lottie think about her role. Lottie decides to take action. She approaches the boy and tells him that it is difficult for her to pass by, despite the circumstances. She passes him food and water, trying to show him that he is not alone in this world. The boy eats greedily, tears of gratitude streaming down his face. Lottie watches his reaction with tenderness, realizing how important it is sometimes to simply show kindness to those in need. After experiencing this moment, Lottie heads to a cafe to collect her thoughts. She reflects on her calling and realizes that she wants to be closer to others to help those who need her. Suddenly, a familiar girl appears in her life. The meeting awakens in Lottie a desire to strengthen the bond with her so that together they can fight the injustice that surrounds their world. Lottie notices a mysterious man who also helps those in need. She feels a connection with him, realizing that kindness unites even strangers. The story ends with Lottie's encounter with this mysterious stranger. Their chance meeting promises to be the beginning of a new significant stage in both their lives. The boy admiringly calls the girl the bread lady until she suddenly gags him with a piece of bread, showing her abruptness and desire to avoid unnecessary attention. The episode conveys a comical moment of their interaction. Lottie meets Aveline on the street, and their eyes meet. Aveline looks at Lottie carefully as she tries to understand the reason for the meeting. The internal tension creates an interesting beginning to the dialogue. Lottie begins to suspect that she knows Aveline, and after an awkward moment of recognition, they confirm that they have seen each other recently. Lottie's slight embarrassment adds warmth to their interaction. Aveline kindly reminds Lottie of their recent encounter in the garden. Lottie, holding back her embarrassment, acknowledges it. Their conversation becomes more lively, conveying the joy of a chance encounter. Lottie thanks Evelyn for her help, calling her her savior. Evelyn brushes off the praise, noting that her actions were insignificant, but Lottie clearly considers her action decisive. Lottie is mentally horrified to realize that she was saved from danger by a man she did not believe in. This internal monologue adds drama to her perception of the situation. Aveline introduces herself and learns Lottie's name. A warm exchange of names ensues between them. Marking the beginning of their friendship, Lottie tries to maintain her charm despite her nervousness. The narrative shifts to Aveline's inner world, showing her as a talented student studying ancient languages. However, her inner reflections on the difficulties of learning add comic relief to the situation. Lottie tries to think of a topic of conversation, but her thoughts are interrupted by a shout. A bulky man approaches her, causing Lottie and Evelyn to look clearly uneasy. A man confronts Lottie about a gold coin she gave to a child. Lottie assesses the situation, suspecting that her actions may have led to conflict, and tries to deal with this unexpected threat. Lottie confronted the large man after learning that he had stolen money from a child. She demanded that he return the stolen money. Her confidence was mixed with anger, highlighting her determined nature. The man began to mock Lottie, calling her a chicken, and trying to intimidate her. Lottie, despite his mockery, was puzzled, but maintained her dignity, trying to understand the situation. The criminals surrounded Lottie and began to threaten her, demanding money from her. They pressed, demonstrating their power, but Lottie, despite her fear, maintained her inner fortitude. Next to Lottie was a girl in a dark cloak, whose appearance frightened the enemies. Lottie whispered her indignation at the situation, but her inner strength told her that she would not give up. Lottie excitedly accused the criminals of neglecting the gold. Her passion and reverence for the jewels added tension to the moment, making them think. The bandits suddenly changed their tone, noticing the confidence in Lottie's voice. One of them, still mockingly referring to chicken, received an unexpected rebuff from her steadfast gaze. The man tried to put pressure on Lottie, but she suddenly counterattacked. She used his taunts as a weapon, showing resourcefulness and confidence. Lottie expressed her contempt, implying that they were pathetic compared to her. Her courage only enraged her enemies further, but she did not give in. The criminal tried to lay a hand on Lottie, but she skillfully dodged it, showing that violence would not solve the problem. She demonstrated that she was ready to stand up for herself. Lottie wondered why criminals called their actions nice. When they were stealing, her sarcasm underscored the irony of the situation. Lottie ponders the oddity of phrases that sound like threats and tries to understand why words like "give me the money" are considered acceptable. Her thoughts are filled with contradictions, and she seems to be deep in thought, as if lost in her own thoughts. Suddenly, a mean-looking man approaches her, who turns out to be quite frightening. Lottie, noticing his approach, looks up in fear. The atmosphere becomes tense, and the tension grows. The man begins to threaten her, demanding money. Lottie is at a loss, but her friend in the black cape enters the argument, accusing the man of threatening innocent people. She looks at him with obvious disdain. Lottie's friend adds that he, a grown man, should be ashamed of himself for behaving like that. Her confidence and calmness irritate the man. He is clearly angry at her words, calling her crazy. Lottie remembers that the original events happened differently. She suspects that not everything is going according to plan and begins to doubt her memory. Her thoughts become increasingly chaotic. The man raises his hand, intending to hit her friend, showing a complete lack of restraint. This causes even more shock to Lottie, who realizes the seriousness of the situation. However, a sudden intervention saves the situation. An unexpected character with a bright appearance appears from above, causing everyone present to freeze. The man looks at him in surprise, not understanding what is happening. Lottie and her friend, taking advantage of the man's confusion, fight back. Lottie cowers in fear, but her inner resolve begins to awaken. The man, realizing this, loses confidence. She wonders why she was ignored, like a secondary character. Her sense of injustice burns brighter, and she decides that it must be corrected despite her fear. Lottie finally makes a sharp attack, mentally cursing the cruel reality. Her determination and confidence unexpectedly give her strength, and she confronts the man, realizing that her friend has proven to be a reliable ally. Lottie reacts sarcastically to the offer to take Ebelin's place under attack, expressing distrust. However, her light-hearted attitude is met with indignation from the other side, whose fist trembles with anger. Tensions mount when Lottie's opponent shows signs of violence. She realizes that her threats are becoming dangerously real, wondering where this will all lead. Lottie looks around, trying to find a solution. She considers that her actions could lead to a fatal end if things continue as they are. She feels the pressure of the situation. She makes a decision, realizing she has no choice. Her gaze becomes focused, and Lottie decides she must act to survive, despite the growing threat. She abruptly stops what is happening, demanding a timeout. However, her opponent rudely brushes her words aside, mockingly demanding money. Lottie decides to resort to trickery. Lottie pulls out her trump card, keeping her opponent on edge. Her quick gesture shows her determination not to back down. She begins to plan her next move. She prepares to use her resources. Lottie takes out a banknote, declaring that money can solve any problem. Her confidence begins to turn the situation around. Lottie's magical powers reveal that money is her greatest weapon. She literally surrounds herself with golden threads, ready to launch an attack. With the power of money magic, Lottie delivers a blow that knocks out all her opponents. They flee in panic, unable to resist her ability. The outcome of the conflict is in Lottie's favor. Her enemies are defeated, and she, having gained complete confidence, emerges victorious, using her wits and cunning. Lottie, with brown eyes and blonde curls, demonstrates magic to her friend. The friend asks in amazement how it is possible. Lottie explains with a smile that it is not just magic, but the result of effort and a high level of training. The girls discuss the talisman that created the magical wind. Lottie regretfully notes that the talisman cost a whopping 20 gold coins, but explains that the effect was worth it. Lottie shares that she spent most of her savings on magical artifacts. The store where she bought them even gave her the status of an important client, which emphasizes their quality. Lottie reflects on the failures of her mission and laments the need to use the artifacts ahead of time. Her attention is drawn to an aquarium containing a fish whose behavior bewilders her. A friend asks Lottie how exactly she was able to perform the magic trick. Lottie is confused and comes up with an excuse to keep her secret. Lottie ingeniously replies that it was a birthday present specifically designed for self-defense. Her friend expresses gratitude for her help, calling Lottie a savior. Both girls agree that they saved each other. This brings them even closer together, and they rejoice in their unity. Lottie evaluates how her actions affected those around her. The stranger notes that the circumstances have worked out well, despite the difficulties. Lottie thanks her fate for having accomplished the task, albeit with some losses. The street where the incident took place turns out to be unsafe. Passers-by are indifferent to the attempted robbery, and Lottie notices that the local guards have not even shown up. Lottie decides to console her friend by offering to have something to eat together. With her care and warmth, she helps to distract from worries and restore a good mood. A man with red eyes and an exquisite aura suddenly runs into a mysterious figure. He admits to himself that he did not expect such a strange meeting, deciding to go out for a walk and cannot take his eyes off what is happening. A hooded girl emerges from the shadows, catching his attention. Her slender figure and unusual magic enchant him. The man is drawn to follow her, watching her every move. In the hallway, he notices her smooth, graceful step. Her presence is so attractive that he even notes her magical aura with a slight smile. His eyes catch a flicker of her energy. The girl Lottie notices his interest, but meets a new acquaintance in a hat. They have a nice conversation. The man notices Lottie's magical essence and assumes that she has special energy. The man continues to watch from the shadows, noticing other strangers interfering with the proceedings. He decides to take his time, remain unnoticed, and see how it all unfolds. Events take an unexpected turn, and the characters collide like a whirlwind. Lottie finds herself in the middle of the action, to which the man reacts with surprise, but remains coolly calm. The man's eyes light up again when he notices the artifact on the girl. He ponders its magical nature, but his attention is drawn to its simplicity and mystery. Lottie, with her charm and ease, reminds him that she may be the daughter of a powerful man. The magical energy around her intensifies, hinting at her connection to something greater. Lottie recalls a recent encounter with a girl named Latte. They discuss her recent adventures, where a magical artifact was lost. Lottie wonders if this could all be connected. Lottie angrily recalls her haste, trying to get everything done, leaving important tasks unfinished. She realizes that the mysterious energy leads her to new discoveries, including a meeting with Arvin. Lottie, returning home after the encounter with the bandits, was tired and went straight to bed. She intended to go early in the morning to the Count's mansion, where Ibelin was staying, to meet her. Yesterday, Ibelin remembered that she had left an important hairpin in the shop. This thought upset her since the accessory was important to her, and she hurriedly returned for it so as not to lose it. On her way back, Ibelin encountered a thief who picked her purse. Frightened and upset, she realized that she had lost money and found herself in a difficult situation. At the same time, Arvin, noticing someone else's wallet, became interested in the situation with a slight smile on his face. His innocent appearance hid mysterious intentions which caused anxiety. Lottie felt like a failure when she found out that someone had met without her. She worried that her absence made her redundant, and her thoughts were filled with jealousy and disappointment. Arvin, despite his angelic smile, turned out to be a dangerous man who dealt mercilessly with people. His reputation was terrifying, even despite his deceptively kind appearance. His name associated with a magical tower caused whispers among people. Arvin was young and gained fame despite his youth due to his incredible strength. Those who doubted his strength paid with their lives. Arvin coldly proved his superiority, crushing opponents with a single glance and demonstrating that neglecting him was mortally dangerous. During the night, Arvin destroyed a third of all the mages, making the mage tower fear him more than ever. He became a symbol of terror, raising his name and power. Lottie thought about Arvin's magical powers that made him invulnerable. Her thoughts wandered to other heroes, but none of them could compare to Arvin, who remained first in her mind. Lottie, playfully reflecting, discusses the strength of the three main characters and jokes that the Empire should be renamed Number 1. Her friend, smiling, offers another cup of tea, and Lottie thoughtfully accepts. The girl admires the aroma of the tea, saying that it is simply magical. She considers herself second in importance to God, clearly exaggerating but maintaining a light conversation. They decide to take a walk in the garden. Lottie notes the need to be more reserved with the main character to avoid unnecessary attention. During a walk, she notices a man and asks in surprise who it is. She is told that it is the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince greets the girl, politely surprised to meet her in such an unexpected place. Lottie rejoices inwardly, considering that seeing the prince is a great success for which she should thank the heroine. The prince asks the reason for her presence, but Lottie, who remains indifferent, answers briefly. Her friend does not understand how she can be so unperturbed at such a moment. The Crown Prince notes that he has come to discuss business with a friend, but his gaze on the main character reveals interest and curiosity. Lottie notices that the prince's attention is clearly not focused on her. Lottie wonders how long it will take for the prince's simple curiosity to turn into feelings. She wonders if it is even possible to remain indifferent to the main character given her attractiveness. The girl tries to find meaning in how many men could sacrifice everything for such beauty. She thinks that her fate could be among them. These thoughts make her smile sadly. Lottie feels someone's eyes on her and looks around worriedly. She tries to figure out what could have attracted so much attention to her, but the prince only looks at her skeptically, causing surprise. In an effort to smooth over the awkwardness, Lottie apologizes, believing that her interest in what was happening did not offend the other person. She is grateful that she kept their conversation light and friendly. Lottie admires how the blonde man brightens the day with his presence. She shows genuine delight and openly declares the young man's dazzling beauty, which lifts the atmosphere and adds lightness and humor to the scene. Lottie teasingly asks the blonde if she will be compensated for her blindness to his dazzling appearance. Her genuine interest and slightly sarcastic tone make the moment funny, although the young man remains reserved. The blonde man looks at Lottie unexpectedly seriously, which makes her wonder if she is being too pushy. Her thoughts drift to the fear of being misunderstood, but she maintains her liveliness. Lottie persistently tries to get the blonde's attention, but he deliberately ignores her. Meanwhile, Evelyn arrives, adding to the tension when Lottie sees their interaction as a possible threat to her pranks. Evelyn reveals that she is the blonde's girlfriend, causing mixed feelings in Lottie. In her imagination, she reacts sarcastically to this news, showing how important this moment is to her. The blonde asks Lottie a direct question about what makes her feel vulnerable. She begins to wonder what could have gone wrong and compares her situation to the lighter, more pleasant interaction between Evelyn and the blonde. Lottie expresses her doubts about Evelyn's friendship with the blonde man, feeling somewhat disappointed. However, the blonde man unexpectedly softens his tone, admitting that he is glad to see them, which slightly embarrasses Lottie. Evelyn introduces herself as Evelyn Dot. Lottie is delighted to see the blonde man smiling sweetly at her. This intensifies Lottie's internal conflict, which causes her to lose her composure. Lottie ponders how the blonde man has such natural beauty and confidence without trying to impress. The moment highlights her admiration, but also her own insecurity. The young man suddenly offers to drop formalities, turning to Lottie and Evelyn. Lottie reacts with a touch of sarcasm, emphasizing that his words confirm his heart of stone, but leaving a note of hope. Lottie looks at the young man thoughtfully, and he wonders why she is looking at him so intently, mentally calling her annoying. The girl looks calm in response, which surprises him. Lottie, when asked about her name, formally introduces herself as Latte Ikri. She is surprised that the young man shows interest in her person, which is noticeable by her thoughtful expression. The young man is happy to meet Lottie and invites her to show a reaction. This causes her to protest internally. Her calm face hides a surge of emotions, and she holds back her irritation. Lottie squeezes her hand tensely, determined to show not the usual reaction, but her own special one. She is unhappy that her name was asked only to test her reaction. The girl makes a graceful gesture with a smile and a slight mockery, feigning delight. Her confidence and playfulness are visible in the shining expression on her face. The boy looks stunned by her demonstration. He remains silent, which Lottie perceives as illogical behavior, wondering why he suddenly became silent. The atmosphere becomes tense. Lottie, noticing his confusion, suggests that he was not expecting such a reaction. The dark-haired girl Evelyn notices the tension of the situation. The young man tries to leave, implying that it was too much. Lottie feels like he is avoiding her. Their tense interaction attracts the attention of those around them. Suddenly, there is a crash. Evelyn almost falls, but is saved by a young man. Lottie watches what is happening in surprise, but remains calm. Evelyn calms down, and Lottie wonders in bewilderment what was going on behind the scenes. She feels a little jealous of the boy's sudden attention to another girl. Lottie notices a rabbit and admires its cuteness. She is surprised that there are so many animals in this place, but her naivety turns to alarm when a strange figure flashes in the bushes. A ninja-like figure jumps out from behind the bushes, startling Lottie. However, her fear turns to embarrassment when she realizes she has mistaken an ordinary rabbit for something dangerous. Lottie happily thanks the prince for saving her from the rabbit, believing it to be a ferocious beast. Her emotional speech causes surprise, but the prince remains calm and patient. Lottie ponders how the prince always seems so considerate and reserved. She notes that he is lenient towards her sometimes ridiculous behavior, despite their difference in status. Lottie's friend Evelyn jokes that her behavior only attracts the prince's attention. More Lottie begins to think of ways to further arouse his interest. Lottie, realizing that the prince is too handsome, comes to the conclusion that any girl could fall in love with him, but her jokes about his appearance turn into embarrassment because his reactions make her tremble. Lottie recalls events from the past related to her affection for the prince. Her thoughts lead her to associations with something refreshing, like a fizzy drink, and she feels light. Her friends make fun of her laugh, finding it too loud and infectious. Lottie begins to understand that her sincerity always sets her apart from others, even if it puts her in awkward situations. In moments of sadness, Lottie tries to be strong, although she feels lonely, but her determination and sincere nature inspire respect from those around her, especially from the prince, who often supports her with his gaze. The prince finds himself thinking that his view of Lottie has changed. Her natural beauty and charisma begin to enchant him, although he knows that it is too early to show these feelings. Lottie, watching with a smile, reflects on her clever plan, which has led to unexpected results. Evelyn, with a slight grin, is slightly embarrassed. Their interaction creates an atmosphere of ease and warmth. A young man with silver hair appears next to her, beaming with a smile as he compliments Evelyn. His words make Lottie react sarcastically, but at the same time reinforce her point. In another episode, Lottie looks on with admiration as a determined Ronbean says important things, thinking Riley that even without trying, he seems incredibly charming. Evelyn, slightly embarrassed by the attention, thanks Lottie for her help. Lottie, however, sarcastically remarks that her name seems to have been forgotten, but smiles, taking the situation with humor. As Lottie ponders her next move, she displays her cunning nature by considering how best to use the situation to strengthen her position among those around her. She emphasizes that she is quite happy with her role as a secondary character. The main thing is to continue to be useful, maintaining balance and influence on what is happening. Lottie suddenly reveals her hobby, causing the other characters, including Evelyn and the silver-haired man, to feel slightly embarrassed by her funny, yet slightly edgy actions. The situation turns ironic when Lottie darkly states that the flags probably represent something more mysterious than love her thoughts, accompanied by a sarcastic laugh. Ronbin forced to interrupt their meeting bids. Evelyn and Lottie farewell with respect. His words add a touch of aristocratic politeness to the situation, leaving them thoughtful. And finally, in the epilogue, Lottie humorously waves to all the viewers, emphasizing that her comedic and resourceful role in this story is what makes it so bright and unique. Lottie watches Evelyn's conversation with the young man. He says goodbye, promising to look forward to their next meeting. Lottie notices how charming Evelyn is in her simplicity, involuntarily amazed by what is happening. After the boy leaves, Lottie recalls his expression, noticing his obvious confusion and awkwardness. She is amused by the boy's reaction and sarcastically reflects on his unnatural behavior. The young man walks away without even looking back. Lottie supposes her comment was too harsh, but thinks it was worth it. Evelyn smiles, but Lottie can't stop laughing. Lottie tells Evelyn that she never would have thought she fit the definition of gap-mo. Evelyn, confused, tries to find out what it means, but Lottie playfully evades the explanation. Lottie notices that the event seems to be coming to an end. She and Evelyn discuss their plans, while one of the maids discreetly cleans the room, keeping an eye on the girls. Evelyn suggests that Lottie go to the library as she has been meaning to visit for a long time. Lottie is surprised by the suggestion, but agrees, thinking it is a good idea to continue the day. Lottie suddenly remembers the importance of the library. The place is connected to a fateful event in Evelyn's life. She realizes that their day is about to get a lot more interesting than expected. Evelyn visits the National Library to read rare books. For the protagonist, the second male character, the library is a special place where he notices Evelyn immersed in reading. Lottie realizes that she cannot miss an important meeting with another important character. She understands that this is her chance to witness a new twist in the plot. Lottie is delighted to have the opportunity to demonstrate to her new acquaintance how well she gets on with Evelyn. Her optimism and enthusiasm help to create a positive atmosphere for the events to come. Lottie, with determination in her heart, ponders how to make her enemy understand that she is no longer invulnerable. Together with Evelyn, they prepare for an important trip to the library to finish their business. While waiting for the trip, Lottie and Evelyn enjoy a moment of silence. Lottie does not hide her joy, because the library is her special place where she feels happy and her passion for books is obvious. Lottie imagines how their meeting will shock her enemy. She is delighted by the thought, but decides that Evelyn should not be privy to such details. Her secret plans bring her satisfaction. Lottie shares her love for books, admitting that she prefers a certain genre. She radiates happiness and energy, and her passion is contagious to those around her. It is her way of feeling like herself. Evelyn laughs heartily at Lottie's jokes, even when they seem strange. Their sincerity and common traits unite them, creating a friendly atmosphere. Lottie feels even more confident around Evelyn. Lottie and Evelyn walk to the waiting carriage, admiring its splendor. Lottie sees this as another opportunity to prove that her life has changed. Her thoughts are filled with strategy and anticipation of what will happen next. They notice the carriage is exquisitely crafted and comment on how it stands out. Lottie is pleased to know that her plans and style are attracting attention, which only confirms her uniqueness. Evelyn, embarrassed by the attention to the carriage, asks to avoid such extravagant gestures in the future. Lottie, on the contrary, is sure that everything was done correctly because a real hero should be embarrassed by the grandeur of her appearance. Lottie laughs heartily, imagining how everyone has become accustomed to such trips. Her jokes even make Evelyn smile. They both enjoy the moment, deepening their connection and shared understanding. On the carriage ride, Lottie reflects on Evelyn's kindness, admiring her ability to find joy in even the simplest of jokes. New plans are already brewing in her mind as they finally arrive at the long-awaited library. Lottie and Evelyn arrive at the enormous palace, and Lottie is amazed by its scale, admiring her surroundings. They look around the building, noting its grandeur and opulence, which awakens mixed emotions in them, from delight to surprise. Inside the palace, the heroines notice that the interior looks even more impressive. They walk through the richly decorated gallery, amazed by the attention to detail. Lottie expresses her amazement and interest, directing her gaze at everything around her. Evelyn heads towards the old literature section, confirming her interest in books. Lottie, following her friend, notices her concentration and tries to figure out how to behave in such an environment. Evelyn discovers a rare book on the shelf, her eyes lighting up with interest. However, Lottie suddenly notices a strange figure and looks around with interest, pondering her next steps. Lottie notices a young man in rich clothing. Her attention is immediately drawn to his appearance. She realizes it is Kenneth, but is surprised by his behavior because he is simply standing there, lost in his thoughts. Evelyn continues to study the books, but suddenly notices a falling volume. Her reaction is calm, although the situation itself causes her internal tension. She is focused on what is happening around her. Lottie panics as the book falls and screams to warn Evelyn. The heroine's anxiety reaches its peak when the danger becomes real. The book falls, and everything slows down for Lottie, who worries about Evelyn. She tries to figure out how to help, but everything seems out of her control. After the episode, a comedy bonus is shown where the heroine plays a secondary role in a modern setting, having fun on the computer. Viewers see her from an unusual and comical perspective. The scene ends with a funny dialogue. Lottie tries to convince others of her importance and causes laughter. Her charisma and brightness again emphasize her energetic character. Lottie reflects that she is too rude to be a good friend to Evelyn and realizes that she has been having the same dream over and over again. This makes her question her behavior and relationships. In the library, Evelyn encounters an unexpected situation. A book falls from the shelf, but Kenneth intercepts it in time, demonstrating precision and dexterity. Kenneth asks if everything is all right, with Evelyn looking her straight in the eyes. The girl is embarrassed by his attention because their closeness causes a tremulous feeling. Lottie is indignant that she finds Kenneth handsome despite his flaws. However, her sarcasm prevents her from admitting her sympathy, which has a comic effect. Evelyn briefly considers Kenneth, but Lottie distracts her with friendly conversation. Inwardly, Evelyn hopes that Kenneth will remain just an acquaintance. Lottie notices Kenneth's frowning expression when he sees her. She jokes about his emotions, suggesting that he is angry at her presence, which adds comic tension to the scene. Lottie gracefully tells Kenneth that Evelyn invited her to the library. She smiles and claims that she and Evelyn are best friends, showing their close relationship. Kenneth's reaction to Lottie's declaration of friendship is unexpected. His irritation only increases her humor, which makes the atmosphere even more lively. Kenneth is clearly disappointed, perhaps wanting to get rid of Lottie. She teases him in her mind, imagining how he wishes she would disappear. Lottie and Evelyn discuss the situation with Kenneth. Lottie worries that he is still angry, but takes his murderous glare as a way to influence hers. Lottie and Evelyn hide behind a pillar, discussing the tense situation. Lottie is nervous because of the stranger's gaze, which she finds frightening and overwhelming. Evelyn tries to reassure her, remaining cool. The stranger notices them and indignantly accuses them of breaking the rules, which frightens Lottie. She thinks that the casual comment turned out to be true. She is angry at his impudence, but she suppresses her anger. Lottie pretends to be in control, but inside she is overcome with sadness. Evelyn stands up for her, presenting her as a loyal friend who deserves respect. She adds authority to her words. The stranger notices Evelyn's eyes and suddenly becomes lost in his thoughts. Confusion is visible on his face. He clearly did not expect such an effect from her gaze. Lottie puts her arm around Evelyn, confident in her protection. She encourages herself by imagining that nothing can hurt her. Evelyn remains focused, clearly aware of the situation. The stranger holds back his irritation, trying to remain calm. His stern gaze says more than words. Lottie, on the contrary, enjoys the moment, seeing his tension. He finally admits defeat in a silent confrontation with Evelyn. It's clear that this has left him more exhausted than he expected. Lottie's imagination comes alive. She imagines herself defending herself from the stranger's aggression by exaggerating her strength. Her determination is reinforced by her fantasy. Evelyn reflects that the men in this story cannot afford to lose the affection of the one girl, and a slight irony about their situation permeates her thoughts. Lottie embraces Evelyn, promising to always follow her as if she were her son. The stranger is confused, watching this strange display of friendship, not understanding what exactly is happening. Lottie laughs at Kenneth's reaction. He looks at her with obvious irritation, and her genuine amusement only adds fuel to the fire, infuriating him. At the same time, her genuine smile makes him feel vulnerable. Lottie knows that her smile is infuriating Kenneth, and she enjoys it. The thought that nothing will anger an enemy more than genuine amusement fills her with excitement. Her shining eyes seem to challenge his emotions. Evelyn tries to distract Lottie, but she continues to tease Kenneth. His gaze becomes sharp, and as if against his will, he lingers on Lottie, considering her behavior and reactions. Kenneth moves closer to ask Evelyn how often she comes here. The answer is simple, but there is something more in his voice, as if he is trying to make amends for his reaction to Lottie. Having said, "I see," he turns away, but you can see how his gaze still remains focused on Lottie's presence. She, as if by magic, keeps him in suspense with her behavior. Kenneth adds that he would prefer an informal manner of communication, alluding to their first conversation. Lottie seems intrigued, but says nothing, watching his reaction. Evelyn is surprised by Kenneth's words and looks at him questioningly. He only leaves a parting remark saying that he hopes to see him soon and leaves without looking back. Kenneth's footsteps echo down the hallway, and Lottie realizes that her comment on the scene was quite bold. She remembers the look in his eyes and barely suppresses a smile. Lottie feels uneasy about her thoughts about Kenneth. She tries to hide her emotions, feeling that something about him has caught her attention, although she cannot yet put her finger on what. Evelyn invites Lottie to come with her further, and they leave the library with books in hand. Lottie, however, continues to think about Kenneth, pondering his words and behavior. Lottie, a cheerful blonde, invites Evelyn, a thoughtful, dark-haired girl, to go for a walk, saying it is a crime to stay indoors in such beautiful weather. Evelyn takes Lottie's books, and Lottie is surprised by her sudden enthusiasm. Evelyn, holding her books tightly, hurries back to the library, and Lottie watches her thoughtfully, not understanding why it is so urgent. Her behavior makes Lottie suspicious. Lottie wonders if Evelyn has forgotten anything, as she has clearly lost her rhythm. Evelyn, trying not to give away her plan, suggests an alternative plan, mentioning books in the process. The weather, Evelyn says, is simply magical, and she suggests that they go to a cafe together where they can pick up books along the way. Lottie begins to wonder about her friend's oddities. Lottie, hungry, agrees to Evelyn's offer. She notices that the capital's cuisine is indeed famous and decides that it is a wonderful way to spend the day. The leaves on the trees shimmer in the sunlight. Lottie decides to treat herself to a delicious lunch, confident that it will be the perfect end to what promises to be a wonderful day. At the cafe, Lottie eats enthusiastically, explaining that it is not her fault that she is weak. The dishes here are so exquisitely prepared that it is impossible to resist. The food is simply amazing in taste. Evelyn looks at Lottie pleased and reminds her to get back before dark. Lottie takes every opportunity to enjoy the meal. Lottie decides to show Evelyn her favorite cafe in the city center, a good place for casual meetings. She mentions that it is one of the best places to spend a good time. Evelyn, assuring them that they won't meet anyone unexpected, enjoys the moment. Lottie agrees, joking that this is not an aquarium but a fine restaurant. Lottie unexpectedly meets Arvin, who seems to her to be a mysterious figure. She jokes about his unexpected appearance, recalling that it was as if he had come out of an aquarium. This adds comic effect to the scene, emphasizing her confusion. Evelyn, Lottie, and Arvin meet at a cafe. Lottie is surprised why he is there and speculates that they were just looking for a bite to eat, not expecting such an unusual guest. Arvin attracts attention with his presence. Arvin addresses Evelyn, calling her name tenderly. Lottie stands frozen at this point, surprised by his sudden appearance and attention to her friend. Her emotions are reflected on her face, heightening the intrigue. Lottie notices how attractive Arvin is. She compares him to an angel, struck by his looks. Arvin makes friendly jokes, adding warmth to the scene. His demeanor seems casual, which unsettles Lottie. Evelyn speaks freely to Arvin, demonstrating their close relationship. Lottie is fascinated by his beauty, so unnatural that she feels as if she is dreaming. This increases her admiration and envy. Behind the scenes, scenes with Arvin are recalled, where he can be quite abrupt, but with Evelyn he is gentle. He hints that he would like to spend more time with her, which increases her embarrassment. Lottie watches Evelyn and Arvin in fascination, noting how easily they communicate. She realizes that their connection seems unusual. Her thoughts fill with new guesses about who Arvin really is. Arvin proves to be a figure quite different from ordinary people. His power and influence make him unfit for comparison with the nobility. Lottie continues to admire his status and strength. Arvin is perceived as more of a king of his own world, which only adds to his enigma. Evelyn displays a relaxed manner in her interactions with him, showing their mutual trust, which surprises Lottie. Evelyn happily announces the gift, bringing a lightness to their conversation. Lottie remains in the background, fascinated by the scene and its mysterious implications. All of this heightens her interest in the enigmatic Arvin. Lottie noticed a thoughtful man with silver hair. Their eyes met, causing an unexpected tension. She considered his intentions, but his indifferent gaze left her puzzled. Later, the man showed a cold attitude, showing that he did not care about her feelings or appearance. His contemptuous gesture increased her indignation, but at the same time awakened in her an unexpected admiration for his strength. Surprise gave way to understanding. Lottie accepted his character as something inevitable. Her confidence made her smile, recognizing that his behavior was justified. When Evelyn tried to introduce Lottie to her friend, the man again showed his aloofness. His indifference became obvious, which reinforced the feeling that he was hiding something important. The man noted with obvious boredom that nothing here bothered him. His calm and unusual manner left Lottie and Evelyn puzzled. As he left, he disappeared in a spectacular manner, shrouded in glowing magic. Lottie was stunned to see such a powerful display of power. It left her wondering about his true nature. Lottie realized that even such minor characters could be incredible. She marveled at the use of magic as if it were something ordinary. Evelyn noticed Lottie's confusion and tried to cheer her up. Lottie, however, was too caught up in her own thoughts about what a brilliant mage this man was, and wondering what was behind his behavior. Lottie happily explains to Evelyn that she has no reason to be sad and was not trying to draw attention to herself, although she is secretly worried. She tries to appear confident, but Evelyn's question hurts her. Evelyn, thoughtful and lost in her thoughts, says she is not really worried about the situation. However, her silence and mood swings leave Lottie confused and at a loss. After a moment of relief, Lottie notices that Evelyn is hiding something. She shares about the man who helped her get her purse back that morning, but leaves much unsaid, raising even more questions for Lottie. Thoughts of her complicated emotions towards this man begin to surface in Evelyn's mind. Lottie, sensing the oddity in her friend's behavior, begins to wonder if she has done something wrong. Evelyn's expression changes quickly, and Lottie notices it but is unsure of her observations. She decides not to dwell on it, telling herself to simply forget her friend's strange behavior. After meeting Evelyn and her companions, Lottie returns home. She reflects on the eventful day, remembering how she met all the key characters. Her heart fills with a strange sense of importance. Determined to mark this day as special, Lottie happily makes a note on her calendar. She promises herself that she will remember this moment as one of her happiest and most inspiring days. As Lottie prepares to rest, the maid happily informs her that everyone is waiting for her return. Lottie is surprised, not understanding why her presence is so important. Suspecting something unusual, Lottie heads into another room, her mind racing with questions about why she was called and what could be going on among the guests while she is away. Lottie begins to feel nervous when she hears the conversations in the living room. Curiosity overcomes her, and she tries to understand what her acquaintances might be talking about while waiting for her to appear. An inner unease makes her walk faster. Lottie, a spirited girl with sparkling eyes and curls, takes on the new task with determination, enthusiastically claiming that her detective skills will help to understand what is happening, reminiscent of classic hero sleuths. She is introduced as an 18-year-old daughter of a noble family. She has never had an affair with anyone, and her innocent image emphasizes the confusion about where the current situation is leading. Returning home, Lottie runs into her relatives. Her father greets her with restraint, but the girl immediately becomes immersed in analyzing what is happening as if she senses a catch. Hiding his embarrassment, Lottie's father is about to discuss an important matter with her. His gaze is full of seriousness, and the girl, on the contrary, cannot help but notice how tense the atmosphere is. Lottie notices that even her mother looks worried. She begins to theorize, suspecting that the topic of conversation will concern her future. She realizes that it is about her marriage, and this realization sends her into a panic. She feels that her entire life, which she thought was under control, will suddenly change. Her father asks her to stay to discuss something very important. Lottie realizes that this moment could be decisive for her fate and begins to resist internally. The tension is mounting. Her inner scream reflects her emotional shock because she is not ready for drastic changes. However, her father surprises her by telling her that it is not about marriage, but about her dream of opening a popcorn business. Lottie is stunned, not knowing how to prepare for this. The family gathers around the table to discuss the new project. Lottie is surprised by the turn of events, but gradually realizes that her life is still in her hands, albeit with a bit of surprise. Lottie and another character laugh loudly, causing surprise to the interlocutor. She tries to justify herself by saying that she did not say anything. The scene is filled with humor and slight embarrassment of the heroine. Lottie reflects that she will not be able to sleep peacefully because of what is happening. Her expression becomes thoughtful, and the scene emphasizes her naivety and emotional vulnerability. The man with the mustache shares Lottie's idea and discusses the prospects of a popcorn business. He speaks enthusiastically about the simplicity of production and the potential of the idea. Lottie is puzzled, but curious. She wonders if something as simple as popcorn can be profitable. Her face shows a mixture of doubt and interest. Lottie conjures up an image of living popcorn, inspiring the idea. She thinks that, although it may be ridiculous, why not give it a try? Her enthusiasm grows. The man suggests starting with a small kiosk, and then, if the idea becomes popular, consider opening a store. The scene shows their ambition and strategic approach. Lottie is excited by the prospect and declares that it sounds absolutely wonderful. She imagines how it could be a huge success and dreams of millions if all goes well. Lottie feels like a leader and an inspiration. Her surroundings seem happy and supportive. She thinks proudly about how her idea has brought them together. Finally, the organization of the training is discussed. The man mentions that he will take time off to help Lottie confidently agrees, full of enthusiasm and ready to move forward. Lottie, trying to distract her mother from her worries, listens to her thoughts about the family's affairs. Her gaze seems calm, but deep down, she feels that her mother still lacks confidence in the future. Lottie soothes her mother, with care gently touching her hand. She is sure that everything will be fine, and their situation will stabilize. Her cheerful smile awakens warm feelings in her mother, but in Lottie's mind, there are still doubts. Joking with her mother, Lottie begins to feel that her support is becoming something ordinary. Meanwhile, she reflects on the importance of being careful with some people, because their mistrust can be a problem. Lottie is lost in her thoughts about family matters as she listens to plans being discussed. Her attention wanders as she begins to wonder if she is taking on too much as the workload gradually increases. Lottie is revived by the conversation with her friend. They discuss the future and plans, anticipating how their efforts will bring success. Lottie feels supported and encouraged by her friend, who shares her dreams. Together with her friend Lottie, she makes plans hoping that their venture will be crowned with success. They exchange smiles and words of encouragement, believing that something great awaits them ahead. On the way to her room, Lottie talks about her thoughts. She recalls recent events, including a delicious dessert she had with a friend. The walk becomes a great way for her to escape the hardships of the day. Lottie sighs in indignation, thinking about how their world places high demands on women's appearance. She dreams of freedom from these constraints, condemning the sense of beauty inherent in high society. Lottie turns over in bed, unable to find a comfortable position. Her mind is filled with plans and thoughts. She gets up with determination, ready to cope with the difficulties that lie ahead. Lottie marks the important day on her calendar, promising herself never to forget it. With a determined look, she leaves the note and becomes motivated, confident that this will be the start of something important in her life. Lottie looks back on the day with satisfaction. She smiles as she thinks about how unforgettable the event was. Images of the three mermen flash through her mind, bright and mysterious, as if they had come from a fairy tale. These moments seem especially important to her, filling her soul with warmth and joy. An important holiday is approaching in her world. The day dedicated to the appearance of fish, Lottie reflects on how significant this event is. Her thoughts are filled with trepidation, because this is a fundamental moment that determines the course of all history. In her soul, there is a slight excitement about what lies ahead. Lottie takes the scrolls out of the drawer, trying to count how many she has left. Her face lights up with a smile, but at the same time, she feels slightly confused. She remembers how long ago she hadn't paid attention to the scrolls, because she was busy with completely different, more exciting things. She looks closely at one of the scrolls with a brightly patterned design. Lottie wonders if the remaining scrolls are enough to complete the task. She is amused by the thought that someone might not like them. At this moment, she does not yet realize that soon she will have to use them all. In the morning, Lottie allows herself to lie in bed and take her time. Her house is filled with a cozy silence, and she enjoys this rare moment of calm. The holiday spirit is still in the air, but Lottie decides to put things off until later, enjoying a lazy start to the day. The memory of a late popcorn supper makes her think about her figure. Lottie decides to limit herself to a vegetable breakfast. Slightly sad but determined, she looks at the plate of greens. For her, this is another step towards self-discipline, albeit a little sacrificial. Her maid brings a letter addressed to Lottie. The girl is surprised, not expecting anything like this. Her curiosity grows as she looks at the sealed envelope with a mysterious seal. This letter clearly contains something important, and Lottie worries about who the sender could be. Lottie tries to understand the meaning of the letter as she opens it. She feels a spark of interest in her chest, but suddenly she is overcome with fear. She thinks that this is a challenge to a duel from the mysterious Kenneth. Lottie worries, because for her, this is a completely unexpected turn of events. Kenneth is indeed the sender of the letter and confronts Lottie. His eyes are stern and his tone stubborn. He challenges her, insisting that they settle their differences once and for all. Lottie realizes that her words may have been too harsh and begins to question her behavior. Lottie watches Kenneth's determined attitude confused. His confidence makes her question her own actions. This moment turns out to be an important lesson for her. Lottie realizes that her actions may have consequences, but sincerely hopes to find a way out of the situation. Lottie receives an invitation to an important event. She looks at the letter with delight and imagines how her adventure will begin. In her mind, she immediately recalls all the details associated with this event and feels a slight excitement before a new opportunity. She rejoices in her good fortune, knowing that this event is connected to her favorite character, and mentally prepares herself for possible surprises. Lottie realizes that this is a chance to meet someone special, which makes her even more excited. While discussing the upcoming event, orcs appear. These creatures look menacing, adding tension to the adventure. Lottie imagines the possible difficulties that may arise and perceives this as a challenge. Lottie realizes that for ordinary people, facing such monsters is a real threat. However, she is confident in her abilities and hopes that by following Celia, she will avoid danger and get closer to her goal. She decides that she needs to prepare and gain strength. Before the big day, Lottie chooses to spend the evening quietly so that she will be fully prepared for the event tomorrow. The girl leaves, secretly hoping that no one will disturb her peace. She carefully checks the situation to make sure that nothing prevents her from relaxing and mentally preparing. Her solitude is interrupted by an unexpected visit. Lottie is surprised, but tries to keep her composure, quickly thinking of how to deal with the situation. As she continues to prepare for the day ahead, it becomes clear that the path to her destination is not easy. The area is surrounded by mountains, and travelers have often encountered danger in the past. The legendary knight Kenneth has already cleared the area of monsters, making the road much safer. Lottie realizes that she is in good hands, and her confidence is strengthened. However, despite the current safety, a mysterious girl with a cold gaze adds intrigue. It seems that her appearance can change everything, and Lottie prepares for new twists in her adventure. Abilene suggests that Lottie take a shortcut through the forest. Lottie, enchanted by her friend's bright idea, agrees, anticipating an adventure. The dazzling weather and cheerful mood give their walk a special energy. The girls decide to go through the dense forest, where something strange appears on their way. Lottie begins to suspect that this walk may be the beginning of something unexpected. However, Evelyn's optimism supports their mood. In the forest, the girls encounter trouble. Huge and scary creatures appear before them. The atmosphere changes dramatically because Lottie and Evelyn understand that they are facing a serious threat. The attention is drawn to the unusual monsters, with muscular bodies and pig heads. Lottie is shocked by their appearance and begins to realize how dangerous the situation has become. These creatures seem to be created only for destruction. Describing the monsters as killer pigs, Lottie recalls their bestial features and frightening gaze. Her thoughts are filled with fear, but she tries to maintain her composure. With no way back, the situation is hopeless. Evelyn steps forward, trying to figure out how to distract the monsters Lottie follows, feeling both scared and curious. Their tension increases as the monsters begin to notice them. Lottie notices that one of the pigs seems particularly aggressive. She begins to reflect on how strange it is that such creatures can speak. Her interest in the monsters grows despite their menace. The tension reaches its peak when one of the monsters attacks violently. Lottie barely has time to realize that they are in the middle of danger. She is shocked by their strength and aggression. Suddenly, a new person appears, immediately attracting the attention of the monsters. Lottie is amazed, realizing that someone else dared to go through this dangerous forest. Her heart skips a beat with excitement. Lottie wonders who this new man is and if he can help them. Her eyes are filled with hope and fear, because the future of their adventure now depends not only on her, but also on the mysterious stranger. Lottie watches in surprise as the tense armored man takes notice of the threat. His determined gaze and posture suggest a readiness to act, and the unusual bird perched on his shoulder adds to the air of mystery. Lottie, being near the mysterious man and his companion, notices a strange movement among the monsters. Their menacing figures stand motionless, and this causes her great anxiety and many questions about what is happening. The man gives the monsters a sharp look that leaves them frozen in terror. Lottie is stunned to see the fear reflected in their eyes. She can't help but admire his ability to restore order with just a look. He prepares for his next move, his movements smooth and confident. Lottie watches carefully, trying to figure out what he is about to do. Her eyes are full of anticipation, and her imagination paints her ever more vivid pictures of what is to come. Lottie begins to wonder if she should continue watching. Her imagination frightens her. She imagines blood and chaos, but curiosity prevails. This internal conflict only increases her tension. Suddenly, the man turns his gaze to Lottie. His intense gaze makes her feel uncomfortable, embarrassed, and at a loss to guess what attracted him to her at that moment. Another person appears, a young man with a slight smile. Lottie notices him rushing towards them, his behavior unexpected and a little frightening. Suddenly, the situation takes an unexpected turn. Lottie is the center of attention, suddenly embraced. She is lost in the action, her thoughts jumping from surprise to confusion. It feels as if her plans have been disrupted by this sudden action. The man disappears, leaving Lottie in the company of monsters. She is shocked that he simply left, taking his companion with him. There is a feeling of abandonment and danger. Left alone, Lottie realizes the gravity of the situation. She is surrounded by many monsters that look threatening. Her confusion and anger increase as she tries to figure out what to do next. Lottie laughs joyfully at her enemy feeling victorious. Her energetic laughter contrasts with the despair of her opponent, who has clearly overestimated his own strength. She reflects that some people seek trouble, as if they want to destroy their own lives. But her joy turns to bewilderment. Lottie can't believe that the man she considered a worthy opponent turned out to be a pathetic coward who gave up everything to save his own skin. Her anger intensifies because such behavior only causes disappointment. Lottie feels angry at the memory of the past. She compares this incident to a similar story where one person's cowardice hurt many. However, the new situation seems even more absurd and disappointing, causing mixed emotions. Even as Lottie tries to recover from her humiliation, she realizes that the creatures around her see her as nothing more than a weakling. This view hurts her pride because she is not ready to accept the fact that she is considered vulnerable. The creatures continue to mock her, calling her a pathetic human. Lottie is lost in her own thoughts, wondering how she got to the point where even monsters feel pity for her. She feels loneliness and despair weighing on her. Finding the monster's pity only making her suffer worse, Lottie decides to prove she is not as pathetic as they think. Her inner voice calls for her to destroy her enemies and restore her dignity. Lottie remembers that she has a powerful artifact. The joy of this thought overwhelms her, because in her hands is a tool that can change the situation. She takes the cards, determined to prove her strength. After activating the artifact's magic, Lottie surrounds herself with shining gold coins. She feels a surge of energy, realizing that she is now able to regain control of the situation. The coins symbolize the strength and confidence that she so lacked. Lottie charges forward, using the full power of her magic cards. The orcs are stunned, not expecting such a turn of events. She finds a way to use each card, realizing that it is better to put all her power into it than to leave something for later. Having defeated her enemies, Lottie savors the moment of triumph. Freed from stress, she laughs at her victory. The orcs who could not withstand her onslaught fall, and Lottie feels that she has restored her dignity and proven her true strength. Lottie found herself in a critical situation. Evil creatures tried to attack her. However, the protective talisman activated, forming a shield. She feels grateful for being saved and realizes her strength. But chaos and bloody footprints reign all around, hinting at a brutal battle. After the powerful attack, Lottie used the teleporter to move to a safe place. Once in the forest, she enjoys the silence and notices that the combination of the magic shield and attacks was incredibly effective. The girl takes a moment to respite, thinking about her next target. Lottie, having tidied up the place, reflects on how the monsters have been neutralized. She feels proud of her actions. A white cloud creature appears nearby, and she sincerely wishes it a safe and peaceful life, despite all the recent dangers. Lottie ponders her current situation. She considers using the teleporter, but suddenly feels the presence of another person. A stranger appears before her, whose sudden appearance makes her feel slightly uneasy. The stranger returns clearly, with a purpose. Lottie assesses his behavior and notes that he could have made more of an effort to interact with her. He tries to explain that he came back for her, but she notices a certain awkwardness in his words. Lottie remembers, with a sly smile, that her sweet smile always irritated this man. She continues to show her ease, clearly enjoying the situation. But the tension between them remains despite her attempts to diffuse the situation. Lottie and her friend are joking about what is happening, making funny faces. The stranger looks at her with obvious irritation, thinking that her behavior is becoming too bold. His look suggests that he is trying to contain his emotions. The situation is going well for Lottie. When she is left alone with the monsters, she uses her powers to get rid of them. She hopes that her enemies will not be able to recover from such a blow, and is sure that anyone in their place would be speechless. Lottie uses her magic cards to create powerful attacks, destroying monsters with ease. The stranger watches her and notices that she uses the talismans with such skill as if she knew about their properties from the beginning. He is amazed by her agility and strength. The stranger is lost in thought, trying to understand where Lottie got such rare and expensive talismans from. His suspicions are growing. Their family lost their wealth long ago, and the funds for such artifacts clearly could not have appeared by chance. Lottie's secret intrigues him. Lottie reflects on how she seems mysterious and incomprehensible to those around her. They cannot find any clarity in her actions and behavior, and she in turn continues to demonstrate unpredictability, leading others to think that she is mysterious. After teleporting, Lottie feels dizzy and is upset that this unpleasant sensation is not being corrected. She holds her head in displeasure, trying to come to her senses. Her bright dress emphasizes her sophisticated style, despite the temporary inconvenience. Looking around, Lottie finds herself in the central square. She finds the area interesting and notes its architectural beauty. The old buildings with cozy streets attract her attention and arouse a slight curiosity. Checking her appearance, Lottie notices that her hair is a little disheveled. Slightly annoyed, she gathers it up to restore her neatness. Her determined gaze reflects her desire to always look perfect, even in the smallest details. The square, being the center of city life, is often used for teleportation. Lottie notices a shop selling magical talismans nearby and decides to head there after realizing that her supplies are running low. The magical atmosphere of her surroundings is mesmerizing. Lottie regrets that the talismans cannot be attuned to her home. She notices a sign on the building of a store where she can replenish her supplies. Her mood improves, and she prepares to shop with a slight smile. She reflects on the difficult lives of secondary characters, noting that they often have to rely only on themselves. An image of an unpleasant acquaintance appears in her head, whom she mentally calls a petty turkey, inflating her grievances. As Lottie approaches the luxury store, she makes a mental decision to spend her money with pleasure. She is ready to experience the joy of shopping and give herself a little pleasure after all the troubles and difficulties. She is struck by the sophistication of the interior of the shop. Lottie feels a little uneasy, imagining how less affluent people might come in. However, her spirits remain high thanks to the atmosphere of the place. Lottie can't stop admiring the luxury of the store, but her imagination paints funny and awkward situations with other customers. She decides to enjoy the moment, leaving her worries behind. A mysterious girl with gold jewelry and a piercing gaze asks what the visitor is looking for. She smiles attractively, creating an air of mystery. Lottie, a blonde in a red dress, introduces herself shyly, but she is clearly bothered by the attention to her person. Lottie remembers that she used to hide her face under her hat. The girl in gold looks at her, clearly recognizing her. At this point, Lottie feels awkward as she sees genuine admiration emanating from the interlocutor. Watching the reaction, the girl exclaims enthusiastically that an unusually beautiful person stands before her. Lottie becomes even more embarrassed, trying to hide it with a smile. The atmosphere is filled with humor and lightness. Realizing that Lottie had been hiding before the woman explains that the hat was the reason she hadn't recognized her. Before Lottie laughs easily, making conversation, but still feels a little uneasy about the attention. Suddenly, the other women surround Lottie in delight. They all compete with each other in admiring her beauty and calling her the flower of the empire. Lottie looks embarrassed, but at the same time pleased with the compliments. Lottie is unexpectedly compared to a famous actress. This causes a storm of emotions in the interlocutor. The girl in gold tries to hide her admiration, but Lottie laughs, considering this a funny exaggeration. Lottie asks to see the entire range of goods. The girl in gold immediately switches to the role of hospitable hostess, inviting her to go into another room. She looks a little confused by the suddenness of the request. Lottie looks at the objects with interest, choosing something unique. She clearly finds something special that makes her think and look closely at the selected items. Her gaze becomes focused. The purchase is concluded with thanks. Lottie pleased with her choice leaves, and the girl in gold politely sees her off, hoping for a quick meeting. They part on a warm note, exchanging smiles. As Lottie leaves the place, she notices the empty street and feels a little uneasy. She can't shake the feeling that something is wrong here. She walks carefully, peering into the darkness, feeling her heart begin to beat faster. Lottie, with an anxious expression, wonders what to do next. She looks through the window, where she notices a group of girls at a table. Seeing everyone having a good time, she sadly realizes that she has missed the tea party, missing out on the opportunity to connect with society. She remembers that the heroine must actively participate in events in order to leave a mark. Having decided to act, Lottie goes outside, but the place where she finds herself seems suspiciously deserted to her. The surroundings frighten her, increasing her sense of anxiety. Suddenly, someone grabs Lottie's arm. She winces in fear and pain. The unknown man roughly pushes her away. She is stunned and only manages to notice how the attacker rubs his arm, complaining of pain. Apparently, he did not expect such resistance. Lottie, radiating confidence, smiles and mentally laughs at the situation. The man in a panic screams that she allegedly broke his arm. Her bold look and confidence make his friends look at each other excitedly, trying to figure out what happened. The man points at Lottie, accusing her indignantly. His companions are frightened by her boldness. Their gazes are filled with confusion. Lottie is internally disappointed, calling them cheaters and finding such a situation terribly banal. She brushes off their claims, thinking that it is not worth wasting your energy on such people. She adds sarcastically that since they are so weak, they should learn to live on. Her words sound like a challenge, which she delivers with confidence and dignity. However, the situation changes abruptly, and Lottie experiences a sharp pain in her chest. She clutches her heart with a scream, her face twisted in pain. She falls overcome by painful sensations, her condition causing panic among the attackers. Lottie is shaking and barely breathing. Her mind is clouded. She thinks that perhaps her last moments have come. The attackers, confused and frightened, do not understand what is happening to her, discussing whether a blow to the face could have led to this state. Lottie, struggling to her feet, continues to show spirit. Sarcastically, she points out their stupidity and reminds them that a real professional is in front of them. She recalls school lessons that she thinks they could use now. Despite her condition, she decides to fight to the end. However, her body betrays her. Her hands tremble and she falls. The attackers panic and wonder what to do, realizing that their situation is becoming increasingly absurd. And Lottie mentally calls for her mother. Lottie, the heroine with golden curls and expressive brown eyes, faced an unexpected situation. After a blow to the shoulder, she found herself on the floor, confused, thinking about her actions. The feeling of helplessness was replaced by a slight apathy, but she decided not to stay in this state. Looking around and feeling the cold under her feet, she decided to get up despite her inner doubts. In the silence of her surroundings, she managed to collect her thoughts, and her resilience was shown in how she was able to assess the situation around her. Lottie gathered her strength and found several talismans on the floor. Her joy was genuine. She realized that she had managed to avoid big expenses and at the same time found useful things. An inner sense of triumph lit up her face. Realizing that her acting had worked flawlessly, Lottie felt proud. She had outwitted her opponents and emerged victorious. This small victory filled her with self-confidence. Inspired by what happened, she wondered how good she would look as the main character of a famous manga. Her imagination gave her a beautiful picture of herself as a true goddess. Lottie picked up the talisman and noticed that it looked very valuable. This discovery surprised her, and she began to study it with delight. An inner premonition told her that this was not just an ordinary object. Having hidden the talisman in a safe place, she laughed to herself at how lucky she had been to get such an expensive thing. It was comparable to finding a precious stone on the street, a rare and fortunate coincidence. Lottie realized that her luck had increased significantly. She felt that she had reached a new level in her adventures. A smile never left her face, and her heart was filled with joy from her good fortune. By choosing to let go of the past and forgive, Lottie gained clarity. She no longer held a grudge against Kenneth and decided to focus on the future, directing her thoughts to further goals and objectives. After overcoming the obstacles and such a fortunate turn of events, Lottie felt the need to recuperate. She walked confidently down the street, enjoying the moment and rejoicing in every moment of her story. Lottie learns that a bakery has opened near the central square where they sell incredibly delicious fruit tarts. Her delight is reflected on her face when she decides that fruits are vitamins, and vitamins, in her opinion, do not make you fat. Once inside the bakery, Lottie orders several tarts at once. Her eyes sparkle with joy as she eagerly awaits the moment to enjoy these sweet treats. When she finally receives her order, her hand reaches for the first dessert. The tarts look so delicious that Lottie can't help herself and starts eating them with great pleasure. Her face expresses genuine pleasure, and she realizes that the desserts simply melt in her mouth, instantly migrating from the beautiful plates to her tummy. After eating every last bite, Lottie is confused. She thinks she just learned to teleport the tarts because they disappeared so quickly. She jokes that she must be a genius magician. The delight of the tarts brings Lottie to tears. Her decision is inevitable. She orders 2 more portions to repeat this unforgettable moment of joy. Lottie understands that it is simply impossible to deny herself sweets. With each new treat, Lottie feels more and more that she has eaten too much. She begins to tell herself, enough, but it is still difficult for her to stop. At some point, she feels a slight sense of anxiety and thinks that it is time to stop. Looking out the window, Lottie notices a group of people who look familiar. They are the scammers she recognizes. Her heart starts pounding, and she tries to avoid drawing attention to herself by hiding behind a table. Lottie panics as she wonders why these people are there in the first place. She worries about being seen and plans how best to hide from their attention to avoid trouble. Luckily, the scammers ignore her, and Lottie breathes a sigh of relief. Her face lights up with joy as she realizes that everything has worked out and she can now finish her meal in peace. As Lottie contemplates her encounter with the scammers, she wonders what would be more convincing: pretending to be a zombie who has returned for the tarts, or simply dying from overeating. Her fantasies take her into a world of absurd scenarios that make her smile. Lottie, a bright blonde with brown eyes, hears a familiar melody and senses that something important is about to happen. Her attention is drawn to the melody playing in her head, emphasizing a special premonition. She involuntarily becomes wary and begins to prepare herself internally. She quickly covers her face with her hair, trying to hide from strangers' eyes, but her efforts are in vain. Random passers-by notice the girl and begin to make ridiculous comments, backing them up with mocking remarks. Lottie feels awkward. Lottie curses her luck when she meets the man she didn't want to see again. He starts to say something incoherent, but he is clearly making fun of her appearance. Lottie is angry but tries to control herself and not show weakness. She realizes that this man and his companions clearly find her irritation amusing. They brazenly discuss the owner of the establishment, not hiding their interest in her. Lottie tries to abstract herself, but their behavior unsettles her. Lottie has a feeling that it is her own fault that she is here. She can hardly remember why she came, feeling that the situation is becoming more and more awkward. She tries to find a way out of this unpleasant situation. The man continues his ridiculous speech, mocking and adding caustic remarks. Lottie can't take it anymore and feels her irritation overflowing. She begins to lose her patience, but still tries to maintain her composure. Suddenly, a maid catches your attention and announces that she has a visitor. Lottie hides around the corner, trying to figure out who it is, but is given away. She is nervous, trying to avoid meeting unwanted people. One of the men points at Lottie loudly, acknowledging her presence. All eyes turn to the girl. The mention of her recent illness causes laughter, and Lottie feels her anger rising at the ridicule. The tension reaches its peak. Lottie remembers that her hair was the cause of this ridiculous situation. She hears a ridiculous joke about her style, and this finally undermines her calm. The girl explodes with emotions. Lottie decides not to hold back any longer. She curses the day in her mind, but feels relieved to have fought back. The man is surprised, but admits that she managed to surprise him with her decision not to give in. Lottie, a blonde with brown eyes, complains to her friend about her weakness, hinting at the possibility of being blown away by the wind. She notices envious glances, imagining how her bizarre appearance causes misunderstanding. Meanwhile, the girl meets suspicious men and decides to find out their intentions. The men, dumbfounded by her manner, talk among themselves about how easily Lottie has deceived them, while she sneaks past, watching their reactions and hoping to remain unnoticed. But her plan seems too risky. One of the men bursts into a swear word, shocking those around him. Lottie, hearing the stream of curses, reflects on how the rudeness contrasts with her intentions. She holds up a mysterious talisman, certain that it will save her from harm. She activates the talisman, hoping to be instantly transported to safety, but nothing happens. Lottie panics as she tries to figure out why her magic didn't work, and notices that the talisman looks suspicious. The men watching her actions begin to tease her. Lottie realizes that her talisman is defective and explodes in disappointment, regretting the money spent and the failed escape. Lottie tries to justify herself to the men, but they scoff, considering her attempts to deceive them a failure. She is at a loss for a way to correct the situation while feeling humiliated. She thinks of a plan using the remaining talisman she found earlier. Lottie notices that the men continue to watch her closely, ready to intervene if she tries anything suspicious. At the moment, when one of them threatens with force, Lottie decides to use the last talisman. She quickly tears up the card, hoping for a miracle, but the tension of the situation increases. The talisman's magical effect fails again. The men laugh at her helplessness, certain that Lottie is finally cornered. Her panic reaches its limit. Lottie desperately uses her resourcefulness to come up with a way to escape the threat. She realizes that her improvisation is her last chance. The men get closer, and the girl prepares for another rescue attempt. Lottie, a young girl with golden locks and bright eyes, excitedly activates the talisman, wanting to show off her power. Her confidence turns to fierce determination when she sees the consequences of her actions, drawing the attention of those around her noisily. Things start to go wrong. The wind force suddenly bursts out from the talisman, and its target is confused. Lottie falls hard, hitting her head with a loud sound, experiencing pain and fear. However, she quickly recovers, looks around, and realizes that she is in an unfamiliar place. The girl looks up and is surprised to find herself in front of a majestic tower that clearly doesn't look like the central square. Her gaze fills with curiosity and amazement as she realizes that she has entered a magical tower. Lottie approaches the tower with trepidation. She feels like an intruder, but her curiosity outweighs her fear. The tower's huge walls make her feel small, but this only inspires her to explore further. Lottie estimates the distance to home and realizes that the return journey will take several days. She is upset by the prospect of a long journey and physical discomfort, but her thoughts soon turn to the possible benefits of a visit to the magical tower. The girl dreams that her latest talisman could solve all her problems. However, she soon notices that the talisman does not work as expected and becomes angry, suspecting that it was a fake. Lottie is determined to find the culprits. As Lottie examines the tower, she realizes that this is where the magical talismans are made. She decides to find out the truth and demands compensation for her useless amulet. Her determination grows as her sense of injustice grows. As Lottie carefully makes her way through the bushes, she notices a beautiful gate. Her interest in the tower deepens, and she decides to knock, hoping that someone will hear her. The knock echoes through the emptiness, but soon the soft sound of a door opening is heard. The door opens slightly, and Lottie hears a voice greeting her. Her surprise turns to excitement when she realizes that someone was waiting for her in the tower. The girl begins to speculate about what awaits her ahead. An old man with a long beard, looking like a classic wizard, appears before Lottie. She is stunned to see him smilingly, asking what brings her to the magic tower. Lottie realizes that her adventure is just beginning. Lottie confidently declares that she will deliver the gift and greet the guest warmly, but accidentally uses a magical talisman. The mistake has an unexpected effect, leaving her embarrassed in front of the magician, who only seems to increase her confusion. Lottie shows the magician the talisman disappointedly, assuming it is defective. Looking at it closely, the magician becomes more thoughtful, indicating that the problem may be more complex than she thought. The magician reassures Lottie, warning that the diagnosis of the talisman will take time, and invites her to go inside. Lottie, excited about the beginning of a new adventure, resolutely goes deeper into the magic tower, full of anticipation. Lottie admits that she is excited about the possibility of a little adventure, hoping that it will not disappoint her. The magician offers her a temporary rest and carefully helps her sit down, which shows his attentive attitude. Lottie notices a magnificent chair and admires its design. As she sits down, she proudly reflects on the importance of furniture, calling it art. She even imagines that sitting on this chair is a real science and apparently feels like a queen. Lottie explains that her teleportation with the talisman did not go as expected. The mage notes that problems with such items are usually handled by the tower's master himself, but he is currently absent, which makes Lottie a little worried. The mention of the tower master stirs up a storm of emotion in Lottie, who tries to figure out who it is. Arvin's name comes up, and the thought of meeting him excites her, as he is rumored to solve the most difficult magical problems. Lottie learns that such magical questions are indeed decided by the master of the tower. The magician explains that only Arvin can determine what the problem is with her talisman. Lottie appears puzzled, but understands that only his help can clarify everything. Lost in thought, Lottie realizes that the situation is more complex than it seemed. Her ideas about Master Arvin come to life. He is described as a genius wizard, and apparently his fame is deserved. Lottie begins to anticipate meeting him with even greater trepidation. Lottie stood outside the palace, thinking how unusual it was to run into Arvin at the palace's usual entrance. It was like a disruption to her routine, a reminder that it wasn't every day that you ran into a prince in a place like this. Lottie knew that a chance meeting with Arvin had a completely different weight than a planned one. Her thoughts were filled with anxiety. She felt that this meeting could change the course of her story. Arvin's sudden appearance brought tension. His gaze seemed threatening, and his order was unexpected. Lottie, frightened, decides not to engage in conflict and to use cunning to avoid trouble. After a tense conversation, Lottie vows to only tease those she can defeat from now on. Her mood is lifted when a mage appears with a good-natured smile, reminding her of her undying determination. Lottie is relieved and agrees to pass on the information to the master. She wonders how the magical staff was able to discover her connection to the name Rose, which surprises her. Her thoughts about the data collection system in the magic tower plunge Lottie into doubt. She wonders how thoughtful the magician's methods are, but her attention is distracted by the offer of cookies, which lifts her spirits. Lottie can hardly contain herself as she looks at the delicious cookies. They look so delicious that they seem to beg to be eaten. Her joy in simple pleasures is clearly visible to everyone around her. Lottie is enjoying the moment until Arvin's sudden intervention shatters her calm. His unexpected appearance throws her off balance, and she is forced to focus on what is happening again. In a fit of emotion, Lottie accidentally throws a cookie, which flies straight at Arvin. This moment brings unexpected comic effect. Her embarrassment reaches its limit. Arvin calmly counters the situation by destroying the cookies with magic. Lottie despairs at fate, which repeatedly puts her in awkward situations, making her encounters with Arvin more and more unusual. Lottie catches Arvin in the act of using magic to turn an object into dust. This leaves her surprised and afraid, especially when Arvin turns around and looks at her with a cold gaze. The girl fears that he is up to no good and can't help but worry. Arvin, with mocking interest, discovers that Lottie is the client he was told about. At this point, Gandalf appears in the room, slightly panicked and looking in a hurry, adding to the tension in the situation. Lottie recalls that Gandalf had assured Arwen that it would take him a long time to get there, but he showed up immediately after receiving the message. Arwen, in turn, reproaches the old man for being the one who asked for haste, showing his unbiased and witty nature. Gandalf looks dejected, but Lottie can't help but notice Arwen's attractiveness. She wonders how his looks can affect her so much, fearing that his charm might touch her heart despite his generally cold demeanor. Arvin leans closer to Lottie, adding tension with his behavior. He notices that the client is valued at 1,000,000 gold pieces, which increases her confusion and bewilderment. The situation becomes increasingly emotionally charged. Gandalf reminds Arvin of the importance of treating his client with respect. Lottie watches a little uneasy as Arvin reluctantly agrees, but his coldness and sarcasm further piques her interest. Arvin asks Lottie a direct question about her desires, and his smile so rare and beautiful confuses her. The girl notices how charming he is and does not know how to properly respond to his kindness, remaining confused. Arvin takes a cookie from the plate, noting that his manners have always been excellent, despite her recent displeasure. Lottie is embarrassed, but agrees with his words. Arvin unexpectedly plays into her embarrassment, showing his charming side. Lottie concludes that she must take whatever is given to her. Her determination to be a client who is treated with respect gives her confidence the girl is happy with her status and decides to take advantage of all the opportunities presented to her. Finally, Arvin smiles and assures her that everything will be fine. Their exchange of glances becomes softer, and Lottie feels that despite his sarcasm, he is still paying attention to her. Arvin nonchalantly informs Lottie and the Master Magister that the special treatment he gives her is not a code word for murder. This shocks the Master Magister, and his brilliant yet mysterious appearance makes the old man nervous, while Arvin continues to have fun. Lottie is annoyed and demands an explanation, but Arvin assures her that he is not going to kill her, adding a slight ironic note. This leaves her puzzled, but the words about special treatment create a vague hope in Lottie that she is safe after all. Lottie asks why she is being singled out, to which Arvin calmly replies that she is funny. This confuses her. She considers herself just a stupid customer who does not deserve special attention. But Arvin, laughing, admits that he likes funny people. Lottie, confused by such honesty, tries to figure out why Arvin understood her so well. Her irritation turns to surprise, but Arvin assures her that funny clients are priceless. Lottie is even more confused, suspecting that he is playing with her emotions. Lottie is consumed by a memory. Arvin deliberately gives her a strange letter for the sake of amusement, calling it his payment for the show. Her heart literally stops, but she realizes that she was simply the center of attention because of his mood. Lottie suddenly hands Arvin a suspicious talisman and asks him to explain its origin. The craftsman confirms that it is a defective product, and Arvin takes it, examining it thoughtfully. Lottie watches his reaction in bewilderment. Arvin suddenly destroys the talisman with magic, outraged by its poor construction. Lottie is shocked by his action, considering it a clear sign of disappointment, although she is also amazed by his mastery of magic. He mockingly criticizes the talisman's creator, claiming that such a clumsy artifact is unworthy of even simple use. Lottie agrees that his standards are too high, acknowledging that not everyone is destined to be a genius like him. In a change of mood, Arvin decides to give a masterclass. He asks Lottie and the master to remain in place, and he effortlessly demonstrates an exquisite spell that captivates the audience with its beauty and complexity. Lottie is amazed at how easy the process seems for Arvin. His magic is awe-inspiring, and she can't hide her admiration. Despite all her anger and confusion, she acknowledges his incredible talent and sense of humor. Lottie looked at the old man in amazement, who commanded respect in her, with his bewildered but admiring look. He said that Arvin had done an incredible thing, returning immediately after disappearing, which filled him with real admiration. Arvin gracefully appeared cloaked in a magical glow, leaving a trail of glitter behind him. Lottie, shocked by what was happening, received a mysterious object from him that looked like a magical seal. Her realization that it was a teleportation tool caused excitement. The old man stuttered as he tried to understand how Arvin had managed to do it so quickly. Lottie looked at Arvin carefully, who confirmed that he had used magic to create the clone. The old man was stunned by such skill, hardly believing his eyes. Lottie was surprised to ask why the process took so long. Arvin explained that it required a lot of effort and careful adjustment. His remark that no one had ever dared to use this technique before raised many questions. The elder, his shoulders drooping, explained that it took a long time to prepare for the ritual. Arvin responded with a measured reminder that without effort and labor, no one would learn anything. This reproach seemed harsh to Lottie, but she sensed hidden concern in his words. The old man continued to work, sighing bitterly, muttering about the difficulties. Arvin pointed out, with ruthless frankness, that the old man had probably already practiced his skills in his sleep, hinting at experience. But teasing him, Lottie couldn't help but smile. Lottie tried to intercede for the elder, seeing his confusion and awe of Arvin. She noted that perhaps they could have shown more tolerance. However, Arvin calmly noted that their tasks required determination and no compromise. Arvin assured Lottie that the old man would live a long life despite her fears. These words evoked genuine gratitude in the old man. He admitted that this encouragement meant a lot to him, especially in moments of doubt. The old man sighed softly and asked her not to worry about him. Lottie watched him leave, trying to understand what exactly was hidden behind his sad look. She suddenly felt a warm respect for the old man, for his steadfastness. When Arvin mentioned that the old man was only 25 years old, Lottie was shocked as he looked much older. Her thoughts about the old man's age and wisdom changed, leaving her to wonder how little she knew about the people around her. Lottie thought about it, looking at the old man with the long gray beard. She felt that his appearance did not match his age. Arvin, standing next to her, explained that this was the result of dangerous interference in someone else's magic circle, which led to irreversible changes. An uncontrolled magic circle resulted in the appearance of a powerful creature. It turned out to be uncontrollable and aggressive, which caused the anger of the magician who tried to control it. This moment became a turning point in the fate of the wizard, whose life was beset by a heavy curse. The demon's curse was devastating. It robbed the mage of hope and changed him forever. Lottie expressed her regret, sensing the tragedy in his fate. Arvin only confirmed that it was an unheard-of case of magical error, the consequences of which were horrific. The magician, hoping to lift the curse, wandered through countless towns and villages. Despite all his attempts, he failed to achieve his goal. Lottie, listening to the story, learned that with the disappearance of the demon, the magic circle was destroyed, which is why the magician fell into despair. The story of the magician touched Lottie. She could hardly contain her emotions. She sadly noted how sad this fate was. Arvin told her that the magician did not give up his attempts, and now works in the magic tower to restore the circle and find a way to break the curse. Lottie couldn't believe that even Arvin, with his powerful magic, couldn't lift this curse. He calmly answered her question, saying that he could help, but the curse only supported the mage, preventing him from escaping from the work he had dedicated his entire life to. Lottie wondered what it would be like to work for the future of a mage who could not be saved. She decided that such a path was too hard. Despite all this, she thanked Arvin for the magical talismans he gave her, continuing to ponder the fate of the mage. As Lottie said goodbye, she felt how difficult it was to part with the talismans. Arvin remained thoughtful, surprised by her reaction. He noted that their story had no future, and even if they lived in different worlds, he would continue to follow her fate as a stalker. Lottie recalled her previous job. She said she had worked as a bricklayer without pay, laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Arvin smiled and admitted that she was funny. Lottie was surprised by his reaction, but assumed he thought she was a future comedian. As Lottie left, she remarked on how much she had learned from this meeting. Her emotions were mixed, but she understood that magic was not always beneficial, and the fates of wizards were full of tragedy. Arvin watched her, hiding his thoughts, but understanding that this meeting was important for both of them. Lottie suddenly found herself the center of attention from Arvin, who offered her a reward for her bravery with a small smile. His eyes glowed with mysterious magic, and his touch on her hand filled the air with a mysterious glow. Her heart sank as he pulled her close, as if protecting her from the outside world. A moment later, they were in a whirlwind of bright lights and shimmering energy. Lottie didn't understand how Arvin had managed to teleport them so easily, but the next second, she recognized the landscape near her home with amazement. Her thoughts were confused between delight and surprise at such a magical ability. Arvin explained that the teleportation magic and amulets in the tower had been blocked by the previous owner, Lottie remembered with suspicion how he had refused to let her use the amulet. Her confusion turned to mild indignation, and he seemed to enjoy her reaction, keeping her on edge. Looking around, Lottie suddenly realized that she herself had no idea how they had moved Arvin. With a smug smile hinted at his own genius, which caused Lottie to protest internally. Her irritation increased when she thought that he deliberately wanted to show his superiority. As they parted, Arvin, with irony in his voice, reminded Lottie to be grateful for the favor and not to forget to buy their goods. Lottie was struck by his manner of parting, and his light but insistent "buy more" left her confused. Her face reflected a mixture of displeasure and embarrassment. Lottie suddenly thought about her role in this situation. She felt like a kind of bank supporting the magic tower with regular transfers. Her indignation at the realization of her own insignificance increased, but inside her a feeling of pride arose for her connection with Arvin. Lottie remembered Arvin taking her hand by accident. It seemed like a grand moment despite its insignificance. To him, she was just a pebble in the road, but to her, it was something exciting, filling her with warmth and delight. Lottie wondered why Arvin's magic had such a subtle effect on her. She noticed that even after teleporting, she didn't feel dizzy. Perhaps it was his skill and genius, which he himself had repeatedly mentioned. She couldn't help but admire his skill. Her thoughts drifted to fantasies of traveling with Arvin. She imagined what it would be like to move quickly and comfortably in the company of such a mage. The image filled her with a slight dreaminess, and she couldn't help but smile, feeling her heart fill with warmth. Despite his smugness and strange manner, Lottie couldn't help but admire Arvin. His magic manners and mysterious personality made their experience together unforgettable. She began to think that perhaps it was moments like these that made life richer and more fulfilling. Lottie is enjoying an evening, relaxing with a cup of tea, when her peace is interrupted by persistent knocking. She lazily lifts her head as the maid announces an unexpected visitor. Lottie is surprised when she learns that someone has come specifically for her. Her gaze becomes wary, and she tries to imagine who could have come so late. Lottie's mind is filled with guesses. She wonders if it could be Book or Kanon, but quickly dismisses the possibility, certain that they would not bother her in such a way. She ventures to open the door, wondering who it could be. Her guest turns out to be Evelyn, whose unexpected appearance raises even more questions for Lottie. Lottie is surprised that Evelyn has arrived so late. Evelyn explains that she was helped by his lordship, who was kind enough to give her a lift. Lottie has mixed feelings about how it all happened, remembering the events with the orcs, and asking if Evelyn was hurt, receiving a confident answer. Evelyn explains that she used the talisman, and his lordship assured her of Lottie's safety. However, Evelyn still wanted to see for herself that her friend was okay. Lottie tries to reassure Evelyn that everything is fine. However, Lottie's thoughts tell her otherwise. She believes that Evelyn will not let go of the situation so easily. Lottie smiles as she shares her unusual experiences. She remembers being lifted into the air and then feeling the cold ground, which left her in shock. Evelyn is shocked by her words. Lottie, her head down, finds the strength to pull herself together and ask Evelyn to continue the discussion. Evelyn is determined to sort this out and already knows what she will say to Kenneth. Lottie looks at Evelyn, who is seething with anger but trying to control herself. Despite this, the fire of rage burns in her eyes. Lottie is amazed by such determination and strength of her friend that she admires her as a real Valkyrie. However, she knows that it is better to let Evelyn cope with her emotions on her own. As Evelyn walks away with her head held high, Lottie is left in thought. She admires her friend's confidence, noting that her behavior inspires hope for the best. At the same time, Lottie feels slightly confused, not fully understanding what has caused Evelyn's determination. Sitting at the table, Lottie enjoys aromatic tea and sweet treats. She immerses herself in the atmosphere of warmth and comfort, enjoying a quiet moment of calm. A smile appears on her face because such moments give her the opportunity to forget about her worries and completely relax. Lottie eats the candies with enthusiasm and, noticing their bright color, wonders what color her tongue is now. She is overcome by childish curiosity and laughs cheerfully, mentally, making fun of her playful mood. This gives her image even more lightness and charm. There is a sudden knock and Lottie jumps. She wonders who could have come at this moment, especially without warning. Despite this, a slight excitement comes over her, and she begins to prepare for the meeting, wondering how unusual this visit might be. As Lottie walks towards the door, she worries about her appearance and fussily adjusts her dress. Her thoughts are filled with mixed emotions, irritation at the sudden visit intertwined with a slight premonition of something important. Her steps become faster and faster until she finds herself in front of the door. Lottie opens the door and is surprised to meet a stranger. His insistent gaze and loud voice make her freeze. She feels that the situation is taking an unusual turn, and at that moment, she is overcome by the desire to quickly understand what is behind such an unexpected visit. Returning to the table, Lottie looks at her guest carefully. She senses an underlying tension in his behavior and assumes that he has come on important business. Questions about the urgency of this visit and possible news begin to stir her thoughts, forcing her to concentrate. The stranger explains that the situation really does require her attention. Usually he prefers to pass notes, but now his presence underlines the seriousness of what is happening. Lottie begins to feel drawn into something more than just casual conversations. The visitor reveals that he uses the pseudonym Olsel to avoid attention. Lottie learns that the matter is secret and risky and cannot be discussed openly. She understands that such meetings are rare and fraught with danger, and this arouses her trepidation and interest. Lottie is surprised when she hears the suggestion to meet fans of her books. She clearly doesn't understand how this idea can be relevant, and her face expresses genuine bewilderment. However, someone insists explaining that such an event is necessary for her popularity. The host happily tells Lottie that at the meeting, Lottie will be able to personally communicate with readers and learn their impressions. Lottie initially reacts skeptically, wondering if such events are held in this world. It becomes clear that the meeting is to take place tomorrow, which stuns Lottie. She tries to come to terms with this news, suppressing her inner irritation, while the escort waits with undisguised enthusiasm for her consent. Lottie is furious when she realizes that all the details have been decided without her input. She literally lashes out at her advisor, accusing him of making fun of her. The advisor defends himself by claiming that it was a surprise to him too. Smiling, the escort assures Lottie that she will definitely like the venue. However, Lottie demands details, interrupting his flowery explanations, and instructs him to quickly tell her where the meeting will take place. It turns out that the event is planned in Eji, a remote province that takes at least 2 weeks by carriage to reach. Lottie is disappointed, considering the plan absurd and impossible to carry out. Accompanied by a map of the area, it is explained that Eji is a provincial place not usually visited by city dwellers. Lottie is indignant, pointing out that such a difficult route would require a week's effort, which she simply does not have. The advisor rushes to reassure Lottie that the organizers will provide a teleporter that will instantly take her to the venue. She asks skeptically, how many amulets will be needed for such a magical journey? Lottie calculates the cost of the amulets and comes to the conclusion that their cost is excessive. She wonders who is able to pay for such an expensive event, suspecting that wealthy sponsors are behind it. Lottie concludes by reflecting on how the organizers are willing to spend a fortune on the meeting. She looks dubious, but knows she will have to agree, despite the absurdity of the idea. Lottie hears the message that the client has chosen to remain anonymous and ask to avoid personal questions. Despite this, it is mentioned that the discussions were held with a knight, which makes Lottie curious and wonders about his identity and role. Lottie ponders the person who can make a knight do her bidding. She guesses that it must be someone influential, since knights are usually members of noble circles. This gives her a sense of intrigue and suspicion about the secret power of the client. Full of self-confidence, Lottie is delighted with the success of her grandiose ideas. She has no doubt that thanks to her talent, everything will go off without a hitch. Her enthusiasm underlines how confident she is in her abilities. Lottie notes that her books have proven extremely popular among the nobility. Even the limited and expensive editions have sold well. She is surprised that fans are so inspired by her work that they are willing to organize a meeting. Lottie's friend happily convinces her to hold the meeting despite the unusual location. A remote village, Lottie is hesitant, but her mood begins to change. She feels sincerity and support. Overcoming her doubts, Lottie agrees to fulfill the request, deciding that it will not interfere with her main job. She prepares for the upcoming event with enthusiasm, anticipating a new experience despite the possible difficulties. Before the meeting, Lottie is nervous thinking about what people usually talk about with readers. She realizes the importance of the moment and thinks about how to make the meeting memorable and warm for everyone. A parallel storyline tells of the mage Erebrock, whose life is full of failures. His clumsiness and inability to handle magic make him the object of ridicule and his own disappointments. Erebrock seems doomed to eternal failure. He feels old and helpless, although he is only 20 years old. His inability to get out of the cycle of mistakes makes one wonder about his future. From the flashbacks, it is revealed that Erebrock was the youngest son in a family with 6 sisters. His childhood was not easy, and constant failures have followed him since birth, adding tragedy to his story. Young Erebrock once discovered that he had a magical gift, which instantly changed his life. He became a wizard, and it seemed that all his problems were solved. However, behind this happiness, there was a dark shadow that was to appear in the future. The curse robbed Erebrock of his youth, and even the right to call his mother mother. Now he looked like an old man and felt alienated from his former life. He was surrounded by young girls, but loneliness became his constant companion. More than 3 years had passed since Erebrock became one of the wizards of the Magic Tower. He was forced to obey the rules, but his inner world was full of fear and pain. He trembled, struggling to cope with the impending depression. Erebrock, looking at the magical tower and its grandeur, felt homesick. His thoughts increasingly returned to what he had lost, and depression consumed him more and more, making the days heavier and darker. Elsewhere, a young blue-winged mage pondered life and death. He wondered who his next victim would be, and with that thought in mind, he prepared for his next fateful encounter, not hiding his slight mockery of the world. Erebrock found himself in a situation where a young winged mage presented him and his companions with a difficult choice. The mage's bloody gaze left no doubt. It did not matter to him whether one person died or all at once. The girl with brown eyes, Lottie, reported that the culprit of the situation was a magician named Bichot, who created a cursed talisman. Erebrock's companions tried to figure out where he was, but it turned out that Bichot had left the city. The winged mage noted that they needed rest too, and mysteriously snapped his fingers. All this caused Erebrock to feel anxious, because his fate now depended on the decision of this dangerous mage. The sudden radiation attack caught everyone off guard. The winged mage used his power to free Lottie and the others from danger. Erebrock realized that his magical abilities were now valuable to the group's survival. The winged mage praised Lottie for her courage, and Erebrock acknowledged the need to continue fighting despite his fear. Surrounded by dark events, he began to see a new purpose in his life, preparing for the challenges ahead. A mysterious man with a distorted face issues a desperate challenge, giving Lottie only 1 day to complete an unclear task. His cry, full of rage and horror, rolls like thunder through the room, hinting at the seriousness of the consequences. Lottie finds herself in a forest, filled with ominous sounds. Shadows swirl above her head, trees tremble, and a magical talisman breaks due to her mistake. The atmosphere thickens, leaving her with a sense of impending danger that only grows stronger. Lottie is overcome with longing for her family. Her thoughts return to the bright moments spent with her beloved sisters. These warm images momentarily displace her fears, but the world around her persistently reminds her of reality. Loneliness awakens in her heart. Lottie remembers how much she misses her sisters, especially in times of danger. The tower mages left her to solve their problems, retiring for a well-deserved rest, but the girl continues her journey. While walking through a bustling market, Lottie stumbles upon a strange device. Her eyes are drawn to its practicality and low price. She decides to buy the thing, hoping that it will prove useful in this unpredictable world. Lottie studies her purchase and reflects on her sudden free time. She struggles with whether to linger or return to her tasks, but she decides to take the moment to herself as she wanders through the unfamiliar stalls. Her new device brings back memories of her home and the cockroaches that once plagued her. These thoughts are intertwined with fantasies about the strange creatures of this world. Lottie tries to remain calm, but the feeling of anxiety gradually increases. The sudden appearance of the huge insect fills her with disgust and fear. Lottie realizes that even the creatures she is used to from the past are nothing compared to what she sees here. This moment reminds her how strange and frightening this world is. She continues to walk around the city, enjoying the quiet moment among the architecture and restaurant signs. Her slight curiosity prompts her to explore more, despite the strange feeling that gnaws at her inside. Lottie feels someone's gaze on her. Frozen in confusion, she feels as if someone is watching her every move. This momentary fear increases the tension, forcing her to wonder what is happening around her. Lottie is stunned by what is happening, and staring into space reflects on the cruel joke that fate has played on her. She wonders how her requests for one thing have turned into such an unpredictable outcome. Suddenly, a young man with dark hair approaches her, asking why she is there. Lottie realizes that her presence has caused confusion and mentally blames herself for her failure. The girl tries to change the subject by asking about his lordship's fate. Against the backdrop of her thoughts, the gloomy figure of another girl appears determined to act. Lottie shares her observations, calling herself a secondary character who seems doomed to failure. The young man, on the contrary, only increases her embarrassment with his sarcasm. Slightly disconcerted, she notes that his constant ridicule creates an impression of superiority. Despite this, Lottie tries to cope with the situation, although inside she is growing irritated. The girl ponders how her actions look from the outside, but eventually agrees that it is better than complete indifference. The young man seems increasingly unapproachable. Feeling internally tired of all the troubles, Lottie decides that she needs to pull herself together. However, the guy continues to make her nervous with his behavior. She suspects that he has not yet realized her sincerity and speculates that his busy schedule may have distracted him from what is happening. Lottie speculates about his motives. With a smile and hope for the best, Lottie decides to explain the misunderstandings that have arisen between them. But the young man continues to maintain his distance, lost in his thoughts. The girl decides to take the final step, turning to his lordship. But her words are met with only cold silence, which causes mixed feelings in Lottie. Her determination is met with disregard, but she does not give up. Lottie, noticing that her sudden gesture could be taken the wrong way, is inwardly afraid of the reaction. She remembers that Kenneth does not tolerate surprises, especially physical contact without permission. In a panic, she comes up with a way to avoid his anger, deciding that it is better to distract his attention with an unconventional approach. Kenneth looks at the strange object Lottie hands him in confusion. Her sly smile and confidence immediately raise questions. Lottie playfully calls it a simple household item, leaving Kenneth confused and adding to the mystery of the situation. Lottie takes pleasure in her own cunning, admiring how her resourcefulness has allowed her to avoid trouble. Her eyes become satisfied, and her thoughts are full of joy at her ingenuity. Kenneth, on the contrary, is still confused, trying to understand her plans. Lottie realizes that Kenneth has been confused since their meeting and decides to clarify the situation. She deftly uses her charm and skill in finding words to ease the tension. Her lightness and openness add sincerity to the situation. Although Kenneth himself looks at her with distrust, Kenneth's reaction suddenly softens, and he takes in Lottie's actions with interest. A slight smile appears in his eyes, as if her approach has actually managed to surprise him. This moment becomes a turning point in their interaction. He accepts her way of communicating. Lottie notices that her plan has worked and feels victorious. She deftly parries his questions, and her internal monologues emphasize her sense of pride in herself. Kenneth becomes increasingly accustomed to her unconventional behavior, although he still retains a certain amount of suspicion. Lottie, eager to demonstrate her resourcefulness, explains how she approached the situation. Her explanation is accompanied by a light joke, and this causes mixed feelings in Kenneth. Her confidence seems unusual to him, but he is forced to acknowledge her skill. The tension between them eases, and Lottie begins to see Kenneth in a new light. She playfully compares his character to something soft and gentle, adding an element of humor to their interaction. Her comparison involuntarily makes him smile, and the tension finally dissipates. Lottie, noticing that Kenneth is beginning to trust her, decides to confess her thoughts. Her voice becomes softer, and she openly admits that her actions had no hidden intentions. This earns Kenneth's respect, and he begins to perceive her sincerity as part of her personality. Kenneth finally understands that Lottie's mask of cunning hides real kindness. His attitude towards her changes. He begins to see her not only as a girl with unconventional behavior, but also as a sincere person. Their communication acquires a new level of trust and mutual understanding. Lottie is struck by a sudden realization. She realizes that she doesn't recognize Kenneth. The shock paralyzes her so much that she simply cannot respond to him. His sudden detachment and change in behavior leaves her lost in thought. This is the Kenneth she knew, but at the same time he is a completely different person. The girl notices that the little details that made their meetings special are gone. His eyes seem impenetrable and alien to her. Lottie is tormented by the question of how this could have happened and cannot believe that such a change is possible. She has disturbing thoughts that Kenneth has begun to avoid her. Lottie remembers how Kenneth used to be there for her, but now everything has changed. His cold attitude hurts her. She tries to understand what caused this change. At this moment, it seems to her that Kenneth is possessed by another person, and she cannot understand why he has changed so much. As she ponders this, Lottie holds an object that reminds her of the old Kenneth. It is a magical artifact that she discovered by chance. The realization of its value suddenly dawns on her, and she decides that this moment will be the key to understanding what is happening. The girl discovers that the artifact commands respect from people. She realizes that this may be the reason for Kenneth's sudden change. Lottie decides not to attach much importance to this, but bitterness remains in her soul from the fact that he sees her only as an external influence. To explain Kenneth's strange behavior, Lottie decides to perform a kind of theater. In an allegorical scene, she compares herself to a sweet girl and Kenneth to an annoying grasshopper that she can't stand. This metaphor helps her understand her feelings. Her memories take her back to the past, where she encounters a grasshopper. The image begins to haunt her, and she wonders if it's normal to think of Kenneth this way. But the feeling of unease intensifies when the grasshopper suddenly jumps on her. Lottie feels the intense gaze of the devil on her. At this moment, fear completely overtakes her. She notices a strange feeling on her leg and understands that the grasshopper has already touched her. Panic takes hold of the girl, but she can't do anything. The girl looks up and sees that it is not a grasshopper at all, but just a leaf that has fallen on her foot. Relief turns to laughter as she realizes her mistake. However, she feels the symbolism in this moment because her fears have become a real test. Lottie realizes that Kenneth's attitude toward women is like that of a grasshopper, hesitant and repulsive. This realization brings tears to her eyes, but at the same time she feels stronger. This knowledge becomes an important step in her inner growth. Lottie, looking at the blacksmith's tool, reflects on how his song has changed the way people treat her. She realizes that such a thoughtful melody can touch anyone, and this realization brings her peace and confidence. She is pleased with her resourcefulness, because even without outside help, she was able to find a way to survive. Inspired Lottie notices how her life is gradually filled with luck, because important people began to support her. Walking through the streets of the city, Lottie thinks that it is time to have a snack. However, she is suddenly called by Buck, who was obviously in a hurry to catch up with her. His excitement makes Lottie surprised. Book sheepishly explains that he knew where Lottie would be. He tells her that the planned fan meeting will be arriving soon and suggests that she prepare for the event. Lottie listens to Buck with interest, and he a little nervously hands her the thing she's supposed to use at the meeting. This makes her wonder what this object is. It turns out to be a luxurious wig. Lottie is amazed at its softness and quality, especially when she learns that it cost 10 gold pieces. She truly admires Beach's generosity. Book explains that this exquisite wig is meant to impress the guests at the meeting. Lottie appreciates its appearance and feels a little hot, but is ready to accept the offer. She and Bucks head to a beautiful mansion where the fan meeting is to take place. Lottie is amazed by the meticulous preparations with which everything has been organized for this important event. Entering the spacious room decorated for the meeting, Lottie and Book survey the place. The atmosphere seems both solemn and mysterious, awakening anticipation in Lottie. Suddenly, they experience a strange teleportation effect, which Book explains the masked guests present become part of an unusual fairy tale performance, completely enchanting Lottie. In a mansion filled with colorful characters, guests have gathered in anticipation of a mysterious meeting. Lottie appears among the crowd, wearing a bright red mask. Her entrance is accompanied by a magical aura, captivating everyone around her. The guests feel slightly unwell from the strange teleportation, but the atmosphere in the hall is filled with anticipation. Lottie notices two masked girls off to the side, who are discussing her appearance with admiration. She attracts attention with her unusual grace and mysterious beauty. However, her gaze is directed to one of the girls, dressed in a refined white mask, who clearly belongs to a noble family. Lottie confidently approaches the girl in the white mask, who turns out to be Leah Rose. Leah looks at her with slight embarrassment, but her interest cannot be hidden. Lottie, despite her outward confidence, is internally surprised by the unexpected acquaintance, feeling a hidden connection with this stranger. Lottie's attention is drawn to Leah's exquisite beauty. Her exquisite mask highlights her sparkling eyes, which are striking in their depth. Lottie remembers that she has seen these eyes before, but she cannot place them. Her thoughts begin to swirl with mild excitement. Leah continues to look at Lottie, feeling her inner strength and enchanting voice. Lottie, in turn, notices an unusual combination in Leah's eyes. A light green shade, as if filled with mysterious energy, stands out from everyone else present. Lottie is overcome by a sense of déjà vu. She tries to remember where she might have met Leah, but her memory eludes the answers. The mystery of this moment increases her interest, and she decides to find out more about the girl in the white mask. Leah comes across as an elegant and sophisticated person. Her manners and calm voice charm everyone around her. Even Lottie, it seems impossible not to notice her. Lottie decides to start a conversation to ease the tension and understand what attracts her to this mysterious person. Leah's friends invite them to sit down at the table and begin the long-awaited meeting. Lottie notices that those who sincerely admire her have gathered around her, but her attention is focused only on Leah, who stands out among the rest. Lottie is surprised to find a special chair reserved for her next to Leah. She takes this as a sign of fate and feels a little excited at the thought that this meeting could change her life. The atmosphere becomes more tense and exciting. Sitting at the table, Lottie turns her attention to the knights accompanying Leah, realizing that the girl standing before her is from a wealthy family. She is surprised by the idea that such a noble person could be her admirer. This discovery causes her sincere admiration and embarrassment. Lottie, wearing a bright red mask, is anxiously considering how to behave at the meeting. Before her appears a girl who is genuinely fascinated by her books, who excitedly announces that she has read them all. Lottie feels a wave of unexpected attention and does not know how to react. A fan hands Lottie one of her books to get an autograph. The gesture is so elegant and respectful that Lottie can't help but marvel. It warms her heart to know that her work touches people deeply. Suddenly, several other guests also pull out books, bombarding Lottie with requests for autographs. She is surprised, but picks up a pen to begin signing. The excitement around her turns into joyful excitement. As Lottie signs the book, she realizes how surreal this moment seems. She writes inspiring words in different languages, causing surprise among the guests. The atmosphere becomes even warmer, uniting everyone around her work. Once Lottie has finished signing, she thanks everyone for their kind words. The guests begin to discuss their favorite books of Lottie's, singling out her latest, highlighting how much her work means to those around her. One of the guests mentions the anticipation of the sequel to her popular book inspired by this. Lottie feels her heart fill with gratitude for the reader's devotion. The room comes alive with genuine emotion. Many people begin to recall their favorite moments from her works, discussing them with amazing detail. Lottie understands how deeply her work resonates with people, creating unforgettable experiences. Suddenly, the guests are distracted by an unexpected argument between two men, attracting Lottie's attention. She smiles at how her books evoke such passions and emotions, bringing together even the most diverse people. A stern figure appears among the guests, watching the proceedings. Lottie, with a slight smile, considers whether she should share a new plot she has been thinking about. Her inspiration knows no bounds. Lottie is thrilled to see how vibrant and lively fan meetups can be. She plans to hold more of these events to be closer to her readers and share the joy of creativity with them. Lottie, turning around in the room, felt a sudden silence, as if time had stood still. Her delicate face in its glittering mask was thoughtful, and her smile hinted at the secret she was about to reveal. Lottie remembered a story from 2 years ago, beginning with a hunt that had changed many lives for those who took part in it. She told how that day, the mysterious man whom no one knew had first appeared. Lottie's eyes sparkled with interest because there had been so many rumors about him. These were not just retellings, but something more concealing a hidden intrigue. The girl looked around and noticed how interested the other guests were in the story. Everyone was sure that he would win the hunt because it was predicted. This confidence and the mystical aura around the man were captivating, and Lottie wanted to know more. As Lottie recalled the details, she realized that not only was this story familiar to her, but she had once read it in an ancient book. She began to connect the dots. The platinum hair, the pale green eyes, the hunt. Everything pointed to the fact that the story she knew had actually happened. She admitted that she rarely attended hunts because of her dislike of the sight of dead animals, but because of the stories about him, she decided to go. This curiosity overcame even her usual preferences, and she began to peer into what was happening. Lottie's mind flashed. Platinum hair mystery history. Could this really be the princess they wrote about? The girl began to delve deeper into her thoughts, connecting what she had read with what she had seen and heard. The story began with a royal hunt that 2 years ago marked the beginning of secret events. The hunt, in fact, did not interest the hero, but somehow became the beginning of his adventure, imbued with mystery and unrequited love. In the original version of the story, the emperor personally wished to see him at the hunt, Kenneth, as it turned out, won, thus confirming his status. But this was only part of the overall plot, hiding more important details. The girl remembered being given a book at breakfast. Before the hunt began, she decided to read to pass the time. She was surprised to discover that the book was about the events she was about to witness. She realized she knew what was going to happen next, but hearing it from Lottie and the other participants was much more exciting. Thus began the sad story of a princess's love and a hunt that changed their destinies forever. Lottie is reading a book and is suddenly struck by the contents, which shocks her. One of the events described in the book causes a storm of emotions. She realizes that she missed an important event immersed in reading, and this becomes an unpleasant moment for her. Her reaction becomes a comical moment. She realizes that she has completely lost control of herself, carried away by the plot. Lottie, wearing a red mask, is amazed at how the story has captured her attention and seems unable to recover from the experience. She shares her thoughts with those around her, explaining that the book was so captivating that she couldn't put it down. Her interlocutor is astonished by this confession, wondering how this is possible, since Lottie always seems to be in control of her emotions. The book's plot continues to overlap with her life. The characters of her imagination, as if they had come to life, fill her thoughts. Lottie realizes that her dreams of romance have turned into strange and comical situations that seem absurd and dramatic to her. She remembers that in the book, events were built around a hunting competition that was supposed to be the beginning of a great love. But instead, she sees a scene where one of the descriptions is reduced to a banal and ridiculous confrontation between the heroes. As Lottie reflects on this, she comes to the conclusion that everything that is happening is reminiscent of Alice's adventures in Wonderland, where the characters follow the rabbit, but the plot loses its logic. Her own life begins to resemble a crazy fairy tale where absurdity becomes the norm. When she realizes that boredom and hatred are what make her life stale, her thoughts return to the first impression of the book. She was captivated by the face-to-face confrontation of the characters, and Lottie remembers that moment again, as if she herself were there. Her companion, amazed by her attention to detail, asks how Lottie remembered such small moments. Lottie explains that she was so engrossed in the story that she could not miss a single word, no matter how insignificant. The girl is shocked to realize that someone actually missed an event because of her book. Her own guilt and surprise are mixed together, but she can't help but feel proud of how powerfully her writing affects others. In conclusion, she reflects that nothing compares to finding something amazing, even if it is related to her books. The girl feels that she has discovered a new inspiration, which leads her to an unexpected realization. Literature has become her salvation.